Some viewers may find the use of cuss words in this video to be offensive. Others won't give a shit. You've been warned. The underground. This phrase drives us batshit crazy.
And welcome, brothers and sisters.
That's it. That's the start right there. Hey everybody, we're back. We're back. Episode 6. Welcome back to the Underground. We got Elder Howard here.
I thought you forgot my name.
Elder McKinley, Elder Hales, and special guest tonight.
Jen.
We have Sister McKinley, who is joining us. We've been talking about having
That
a
sounds
guest.
natural, right?
I've literally never been called that before.
Sister
But it
McKinley.
sounds so good. See what you were missing out
Well,
on?
that's your mom. Like, you know what I'm saying to me? Like, that's
Sister
more like
McKinley
Because
is
I mean, I was
fancy.
out. You'll learn all about my story. We'll just keep it for that. But no, I've never been Sister.
She wasn't a McKinley at a point where she would have been called
Yeah.
Sister McKinley.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm following. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
So
you
you
acted,
feel left
you looked
out,
a little
though?
dumbfounded. Like
Well, I had to think about that for a second, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I was just letting it play out. But
Yeah.
Sister Mettler,
Wasn't that either?
is that your mom? That's your mom.
That's my mom.
Sister
For sure.
Mettler.
Yeah. No, because when you're a kid, like, you're not really called, like,
Crazy.
hey, sister.
They didn't call you that when you were in church. They were like, Sister Mettler's going to give the prayer now. Or would they be like Jenny? They called you Jenny.
I don't
back then.
Jenny
remember.
from
I
the
don't
block.
remember people calling younger women sister.
No. Mm-mm.
Growing
No,
up.
it was usually.
That's
it was
fucked
after I
up
got
because
home.
you're brothers and sisters. So why
No,
do they not
that's-
acknowledge that the
Because
little
you
the
haven't
little ones are
crossed the
brothers as
threshold
well?
of being an adult yet, so you don't earn the right of.
Yeah, what,
Sister.
what constitutes, yeah, if you have a comment about this, put this in below, like, what's your thought, like, at what age or what,
Do you become sister or
yeah,
brother?
like, do you cross over and, like,
It
when you
seems like such a.
disavow and shit, like, then your sister and
Well,
all
no,
that?
I think it's wow. She just
Seriously,
really
I
that
just thought
escalated.
that went.
That's a heads up for what the episode's going to be like. We just escalated
Spoiler
that
alert.
quickly.
Sorry.
I was thinking about for guys after they come home from their mission.
It was
Probably.
definitely after the mission that I started calling people brother and sister.
Well, I
You
didn't.
didn't do it in
I didn't-
seminary,
I didn't
right?
call
No,
any of you
no.
brother
Yeah,
or
no.
sister
Yeah, same.
McKinley. I wouldn't call people our age. That was always older people too. We were elders, but
Yeah,
Isn't that
but-
ironic that you called the younger people elders?
But you certainly got into the habit of calling the priesthood authority or
that's what I'm saying. Older people,
in the mission field, though. That's where I got used to saying it.
regular members.
You
Right.
realize, like,
But
you're
older
those
people.
now, right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking older people. Like when we were kids, we weren't calling
Reminding.
people our age brothers
No,
and sisters.
I
It was
wasn't.
It was always older people, parents.
Okay,
But-
so here we
yeah.
are.
That
But,
is
like,
such
what age
a
was
long
it?
tangent we've gotten on in the first 5 minutes of
And
this
we wonder
episode.
why they're 3.5 hours to go through when Rick does all of the editing. Our editor over here.
But you like editing. You like corn.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also takes a lot of work.
It does. It does. It takes a lot of work. So does the lighting. And I'm getting credit as the lighting guy. for this
Crediting
episode.
himself.
Who bought the light? The light? The strip down here. Who bought the
That
light?
light?
That's the one I'm
Who
talking
bought
about right
the
now.
lights that allows us to be seen?
But when you said that light's not working, who fixed the light? The light guy? Who bought the light on the strip?
Somehow, you and I got left out of this conversation.
Well, we already established that you don't do anything, Sean. So.
Sean just shows up and eats the wings and drinks the beer and then talks for a little bit.
And then
And
says, hey, I've got to go home.
yeah.
We'll see you Thursday.
And we're supposed to be talking about Jen.
And tonight is Jen's night, and we're so glad to have you on. I've known you for quite a while.
I've known her for almost as long.
Along.
A couple days shy of how long I've known her.
And it's been...
When did you
no,
first meet Jen? Was it? Oh, I
It was-
know.
it was 2008.
It was at the regional conference.
What regional conference?
Go
No.
back and watch
I don't
episode
know.
1.
Right. I met her the night that we went to Gracie's. That was 2008.
What night did we go to Gracie's in
That
2008?
was that...
Was that
New Year's-
still
I
in
think that was
2008?
I think that was New Year's Eve. Anyway, it's been a while,
yeah.
so
Mhm.
it feels like forever though.
I know.
What-
So let's get into this.
I'm ready.
So why are we
We've been on enough tangents. So, as we've been doing our stories, try not to lean in front of me while I'm talking to her.
I needed to grab my beer.
So as we've started all of our stories, we've started with growing up. So you grew up in California,
I did.
like Scott.
I was
Talk about
Southern
that. So talk
California.
about that experience because you are also a convert, so that's different than all of us.
That's
so,
the big thing, is it?
So talk about that growing up outside and then being
Sure.
introduced to and coming into the church.
So California, Southern California, LA area. I have an older sister who's 4 years older than me, and I have a younger brother 4 years younger than me. So I'm kind of right in the middle. And yeah, so we were converts. I don't honestly remember like the missionaries really being over a lot or really at all.
Did they
like,
track into you, or how did the connection start?
all I know is through my mom. They got her. I know they got her with the whole family
Well,
eternal. So nobody.
But what I'm saying is,
in my
did they knock on your door and your mom answered,
I'm
or how
sure.
did they get
I'm
connected?
sure that's what it was.
Connie,
And-
leave a
and we
message
don't-
in the comments.
Because we didn't know, at least, okay, so from my kid mind, we didn't hang out with other Mormons. We didn't know any other Mormons in the vicinity of us or around us. We didn't hang out with them. Nobody at our school was. So I'm sure it had to be kind of a missionary situation. And also, my whole extended family is not. No one is. Both sides, all over. I'm sure we were the weird ones.
So how did that affect you as a kid, growing up outside of the church, now being in the church, and not only being in the church now, but being the only person that you knew in your area anywhere that was Mormon?
Yeah, it was a lot different than here in Utah.
Oh, I'm sure. Obviously, it's like the exact opposite.
Like culture shock. So in California, in Torrance, where we lived, I mean, being not only Mormon, but a white girl in a predominantly Hispanic, city, I was a minority race-wise. And I mean, our church, so I didn't know anybody growing up that was, not any of our neighbors. And what was cool in California was everybody was just like our neighbors. We knew all of them. And we knew them because of their weird quirks. So like this one guy that lived across the street from us, Mr. Lincoln. Okay, in California, the roads are tiny. And so when you can't have like two cars parked. He had this big fucking RV that he would sit out on the porch and play with his
remote control.
all day until that son of a
I
bitch
can't
got
wait.
broken into, and no one fucking went and responded because they thought it was just him playing with his little
His
clicker
gaming?
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those were our neighbors. It wasn't.
Just the weird quirkiness about them, not like, well, they're members and they're not members, so we don't know them. And we've talked a little bit,
Yeah.
well, maybe that was the first time we filmed this episode. We talked about just the difference in identifying people as activity in the church when you come to Utah versus growing up in California.
It was the Smiths, the Jones, the kids with the
They're,
triplets down the street. Or
I don't even know if any of my friends were religious growing up in California. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I was north of you. And I have no clue if any of them went to church because you just didn't talk about it.
And people played on Sunday. So that was another thing, was
Not
there was
us.
no one holding you accountable, no one being there to tattletale, we just were out. And the only real, honestly, besides being Mormon and going to that church, was down the street there was a Catholic convent. And where actual nuns lived, you'd see them, and they lived there. And then the chapel was beautiful, just kind of was around the corner. And they would have weddings there all the time, cool.
And that was your growing up,
Yeah.
your impression of what a wedding looked like.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
did anything change when you guys joined the church? Did anything change from you used to be able to play on Sunday to where all of a sudden, well, we've been
Playing
told
on
okay,
Sunday
so-
was not a thing in California.
That's
Like,
one of the
that
things that was different from her to us is that we all grew up in that background, not being able to play
Yeah.
outside.
It
and
must have
do
been a
stuff.
Northern California thing.
Well, she didn't
Well,
grow
I
up
think
Mormon.
It was also
You
your
did.
whole family. I mean,
Yeah.
because we
Well,
would
she just
have
said it
family-
didn't happen in California, and I was like, no, it happened in California.
I'm saying for me living in California, my life
when
living
you
in
were
Cal-
there.
In her life
in my
zone.
life.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got
So
it.
so
Yeah.
also when you guys joined, did you guys jump in with both feet? How old were you again?
I don't remember, but I know I was baptized when I was 8. For us, we drove 45 minutes to church on Sunday, so church on Sunday didn't happen every week, you know? Oh yeah. It was like an outdoor one, so it wasn't like an indoor chapel. Like I remember doing a big thing at Halloween was like the cakewalks. Did you guys do cakewalks up here?
Mhm.
Okay, so a cakewalk.
I remember those.
And then they did really cool for Halloween because there is warm, you know. So they would decorate the rooms outside, all really cool. And you'd go knock and trick or treat around the church and they'd have, so that's what I remember as my experience growing up.
So you had a pretty good experience growing up with
For the
them.
most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least at that age, right?
And
So then when did you make the big move?
So we moved.
Talking about moving to Utah.
June of 91. So I was 11 turning 12 that August.
She was 12 and like you were a year from graduating.
2.
I was a year from
I'm 5 years older than you.
Uh-huh.
So I was 17.
I was turning 12.
So I was 16. She was turning, because I turned 17 after she turned 12.
Yeah.
This happened much later in life. It wasn't like he was.
I wasn't pulling a Hales.
Wow.
A reverse Hales.
Right. You were stealing.
Anyway, okay, so you move, you're 11,
yeah.
12, and so what is that like? It was already probably pretty surreal being the only Mormons in California.
So-
Now you're going to maybe even more surreal situation where now
Now
you're
everyone's a Mormon?
surrounded by them.
Were you prepared?
Let's ask Brother Hales how LDS and Mormon is Farmington, Utah.
98%.
Yeah.
At least.
And would you say the predominant race in Farmington is...
White Mormon.
Caucasian.
Well,
So,
that's the case for all
yeah.
of Utah. I mean,
I know, but
I mean, yeah, like-
Farmington, Kaysville.
So you went
that's
from
the
Southern
that's the
California.
exception.
We're going to have to find a cool clip to put in that part that represents SoCal.
Yeah.
To
Farmington,
Utah. And I can't wait to find the clip to represent Farmington, Utah. That's going to go right there.
Okay.
why farmers in Utah?
Farmington.
Farmington, Utah.
Lagoon. Comes
No,
to
I wasn't
mind.
thinking of Lagoon. I was thinking of like a bunch of fucking white cunts and like
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
bonnets.
Bonnets? What are you getting at?
So,
when
what am
we-
I getting at? Farmington, Utah is super duper Mormon. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The
bonnets.
pioneers.
Well, yeah, what did you think I was talking about?
Well,
Farmers.
we were talking Lagoon, so I was thinking pioneers and all that
Farming.
fun stuff.
Well, yeah.
Like, okay, yeah.
That's what
Pioneers.
we thought. Californians thought of Utah as kind of a little backwards hicky. Hey, welcome to
I
Utah.
can
Is
see
that what you thought? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
because
Anytime we had to come to Utah, it was
Right.
always kind of like,
Oh, we're going back 50 years in time.
oh, you guys in your lagoon. You're so cute.
And true story, because I would go to Disneyland. I mean, like, I grew up 15 minutes from it, 20 minutes from it. So
then she comes in there like, have you got to Lagoon yet? And she's like, what's Lagoon? They're like, it's like Disney World in Utah.
And then you get there and you're
I'm
like,
like, what? This is a carnival.
This is like-
it was,
This
This is
like
a
like a
glorified
circus.
state fair.
You've
The
got
circus
3
is in
rides
town.
and a zoo.
Yeah. Oh, and you guys,
Back then.
and you guys
Oh.
still pay tickets?
And in September, the
Okay.
Osmonds are coming.
For real.
Welcome to Lagoon.
So, yeah, it was.
By the way,
it was
Lagoon's
crazy.
not a bad place these days, but it's
I
no
worked
Disney
at Lagoon.
World.
Lagoon has
really
gotten
did.
better,
I worked at Lagoon.
but back in the late 80s,
It's not
early
Disney
90s,
World. Everybody knows that.
And
We
then
don't
you,
have to
and then you go to
establish that
Six
anymore.
Flags. You go to Six Flags in California, and all of the tiny rides are all of the large rides. at
Yeah,
Lagoon.
that's why I don't go to Magic Mountain or Six Flags.
Yeah, no.
I'm great at Disney because that cat, like, Tower
That's
of
your
Terror,
threshold.
Yeah.
Is Disney rides.
Mission Space, whatever it is. Mission Galaxy.
Space Mountain.
Galaxy, Guardians of the
Galaxy's
Galaxy,
Galaxy
whatever it is now.
Quest.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So,
So it was crazy. Moving to Utah, living in Farmington, going,
Culture shock.
where
Bam.
the fuck am I? And so...
Like how in
Going from only Mormon to
drowning in
Yeah.
Mormons.
oh, like, y'all take this shit serious. Like,
Oh,
then there
really?
was
No
no
play
playing
on
on
Sunday?
Sundays.
Yeah.
Like, we had to set a good example. So, where we lived was up on the mountain behind one of the grocery stores in Smith's that was, like, one of the only things there when we moved. But right behind Smith's up on the mountain, you know, it was like a one-way in, a one-way out. And there was one house in the whole neighborhood that was not.
not
It was
Mormon.
not Mormon.
Right.
Yeah.
98%.
They were Catholic. The Parcells. They were great people. We were actually one of the few families,
That
if
talked
not
to
the
them?
only. Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
Because even
not
even
everybody.
in that hierarchy, okay, so we moved in, and my sister and I now were or my sister was, and I was getting into young women's age, but we were kind of looked at, to be honest, like sluts, and we hadn't done anything already at the get-go because we
you're
were
from California.
California Mormons.
So
We weren't.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about going to, lodges and rituals and stuff like that in
Yeah.
California. So how does your life, just from your spiritual experience within church, change going from what it was in California to now being in Utah?
Like,
You're obviously not going to lodges anymore, are you?
Oh, no,
Right.
that stopped.
So that's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
how did things change from that kind of perspective, living in California in the church to Utah in the church?
I think for me, it was an easier transition because I was 12, just getting ready to go into young women. So it was a perfect transition. I was starting 7th grade. So even that for me in junior high, like it wasn't, my sister was a junior. And for her, like that was really rough because she had her core of friends and the things that she was involved with. So... and then also the religious aspect. I mean, okay, so I went to Davis High, which was a very cliquey high school, and she
you have a
was
lot of
going
rich kids. You
in.
have a lot of rich kids that live there. Yeah.
Yep, a lot of money, a lot of religion. Oh yeah, it was.
So did you get along with a lot of the young women that were within your ward, stake, and school, or what you said before with being labeled?
So in my
loose?
ward, we had the largest number of so what do you start out with, like Beehive and
Behind my maid's laurels.
what was the dudes though? Beehive,
Deacons, teachers,
Deacon?
priests.
Okay, so if you do like the Beehive and Deacon group that were all like in that for
That's
that
12
year.
to 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
12 to 13-year-olds in the church are called, for girls, beehives, for boys, the deacons.
So then we had the largest group of like guys and girls. And so we had the biggest class. And so, I mean, we would play night games at night with everybody in the circle because, like, we were pretty relatively safe up there because unless you knew where you're going up the mountain. So I'll be honest, like, for me, it was great. Like, here I had structure. And I was great at structure. I was great at being obedient, and I was great at following direction,
So you probably thrived with the church.
Oh, yeah. Like, just completely. Plus, it was my whole social base. I mean, if you're not in it, I can't imagine, because my life was taken up by it. Now, Monday night was family home evening, and really we would only be, like, good about it if it was like after a conference or my mom saw it in an ensign, is like, we need to step
So it
up
wasn't
our
like
game.
you're doing it every week.
No. So that would be Monday night. Mutual would be Tuesday night.
Let's talk about mutual. What's mutual?
Let's talk about mutual.
Let's not.
Mutual is church for Wednesday night. It's
Ours
just
is
when the
Tuesday.
teenagers... Really?
Ours was Tuesday night. Yeah.
Tuesday night was mutual?
Tuesday or Wednesday, yeah.
What was yours?
It depends, because we had 3 wards.
My mutual consisted of playing basketball in the chapel.
Oh, Ricky.
Yeah, it was
And
either
it was
Tuesday or Wednesday
we talked
night.
about like beehives, my maids, laurels, like the different groups would be in charge of like
Age groups.
age groups would be in charge of planning an activity, or sometimes it would just be the girls. Then you'd have a joint activity. Then you had
Scouts. We had scouts. Scouts for us were like Tuesday night. We had scouts on Tuesday nights.
Separate
on
from
top of
separate from
Oh,
mutuals?
yeah.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. Scouts. If you were in scouts, that was in addition to going to mutual. So they got you on Sunday for 3 hours. They got you on Monday for what we've decided is about an hour. They get you Tuesday night if you're in
but
scouts.
Scouts was at least wasn't really churchy. That was at least fun shit, right? Building derby
Yeah.
cars.
No, there was no church. There was no church in scouts. But
Which episode was it that we talked about the connection of the church and?
I think it was in
The
yours.
first one.
Okay.
No, I think it was in your
one
episode.
that's actually aired.
No,
so
it
if you
was
watch
yours. It was your episode. We were talking about scouts.
So anyway, there was a very close connection between the church and scouts back then.
Right.
So
I
it
went
was
to,
kind of the same thing.
my scout troop consisted of the guys that I went to church with. I didn't have. There was
And your
no.
scoutmaster was one of your
Somebody
church
called from the
leaders.
ward, asked to do it.
Like ours, like my best one, he was also our young men's
Yeah.
teacher.
Wait, so did you have non-members that were in your scouting
No,
too?
no. Well, if one of us had a friend that we brought.
But otherwise, they were having...
Otherwise, it was scouts was 100% connected
yes.
to the church.
I probably grew up thinking that
Interesting.
scouts was part of the church.
I did.
Oh, I did.
That's how ingrained it was for me.
Yep.
And then we would go to like jamborees and see all these people like, who the fuck are these kids? I don't know any of these kids. Where are they coming from?
And
there's
they've all got
troops.
potty mouths.
They are
Who's
telling
got
some
big
dirty, dirty
boys.
jokes.
Yeah, yeah,
Dirty
yeah, for
magazine
real.
day.
So like, thanks for sending me to the jamborees, Mom and Dad. I got to see some Playboys and talk like shit.
But what did they think of you guys?
That we were just these.
Because I'm sure in California,
I don't
going to
know.
the jamboree was a lot different than the jamborees here in Utah, where predominantly I'm sure it is just other wards.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably had like Troop 59 and Troop 100.
Could have. You
That-
could have.
that
You
was
could have had.
other
I
Why did you go
am-
59? You could have nailed it. Troop
I
69.
mean,
I wasn't going to just go start with that.
You've already started.
So, back to our week. They got you Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then if you're older, you were in seminary. Have we explained seminary?
yeah, we did.
Okay, so you have seminary. Now, in California, I know that was probably like before school. I had it as a class. So like those people that weren't members, that didn't take seminary, graduated early. So
Ours
like
didn't.
that was
Ours, that wasn't the way ours was. It was all the same. It
because
was just another
you
class.
used as an elective
Probably.
to take seminary. And so
Where are you taking my?
yeah.
Because I think they want to see this more than they want to see that.
Anyway, okay, so your life is
That's what I'm saying.
all
if
about
I
the
wasn't,
church.
If I wasn't in that, I wouldn't have been part of that social scene. I would have been completely
So-
ostracized. I mean, the reason I got
You'd been-
away with sleepovers on Saturday night to a Sunday was because my best friend and I would get up, we'd get ready
Go
for
to
church
church.
together, and we'd walk.
So Sean and I talked a little bit about how good it was growing up in the church because of that social aspect. It's a built-in social group for you. And so
Oh, babysitting, jobs, like you already had this golden ticket of like, I'm a good kid. So I would be able to get those jobs, like I said, babysitting or whatever.
okay,
Yeah.
so you're totally in it. You're a good little Mormon girl. So when do things start
When
to
do the
shift?
wheels start
like
to
when do
fall off?
things like what age and what sort of caused you to start
Because
shifting?
again, going back to Farmington, the Kaysville area, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot of people that are in it to win it. So
Yeah.
did you start seeing things that, or were you questioning?
Well,
Were you
was
questioning
very,
anything as a kid?
I was very fortunate in that aspect because I was constantly seeing. So, like, if we had a family gathering for the holidays or they'd come over to our house on Sundays or whatever it was, I would see how the other half lived. I would see how people would drink. My grandpa, he smoked, you know, they were gamblers. Everybody in my family drank. Like,
Sinners. Sinners.
Did you
My
see
mom
them
wasn't.
as like?
No, never. And that's what I think.
Because you
those
had other people giving judgment,
Yeah.
right? You saw the judgment?
Because, so we don't have any family here in Utah. We're the only ones, and we moved here to Utah. So I think for me, had I been born with the whisperings in the ear from a very, very little age, I mean, I really started comprehending the Book of Mormon at like 9. No, not even that. I would say when I moved to Utah and I was actually reading it and studying it through Young Women's. So for me, I was coming late to the game. I didn't know a lot of doctrine. I didn't know a lot of, I felt very behind the 8 ball.
Most kids don't know.
I felt like that going into my mission.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I hadn't read the Book of Mormon before I went on my mission.
I mean, all of us feel like everybody else knows so much more about this
Sure.
shit than I do. I don't know scriptures. I don't.
And you know, like, itty bitty amount compared to what's really out
But
there.
point being is
sure.
that
Because
everybody else feels that way too.
But I didn't know that.
Right. Either did I.
Yeah, I just
That's what
was
I'm-
like, but I was seeing people that had been born in Utah and raised with all their family. And so when they would talk about degenerates or those people that are lost or whatever, they were talking about my family.
And your family, you loved your grandparents, your mom's parents, you
Yeah.
loved your uncles. You had an abusive stepfather who was a member of the church.
Well, the convert, because more for my mom. Honestly, I think you did it more.
But
But the majority of the
Yeah.
people in your family that you're close to
I
are
look up
outside of the
to,
church,
yeah.
and you're seeing how they're looked upon. So
Yeah,
did you
So-
ever go outside and hang out with your grandpa while he was smoking?
all the time.
And did you think he was doing anything
Nothing
like
bad.
immoral or?
Well, I didn't want him to smoke because I didn't want him to die because of lung cancer, but it was that reason. It wasn't because...
he was going to go to hell.
Yeah, no.
So-
that you're being taught, like, in class or for anybody who smokes or drinks, that's just, it goes against the word of wisdom. We've talked about the word of wisdom before, and so it causes people to have that judgment of others. Well,
Yeah.
And you're seeing that and how it reflects upon these family members that you're closest to who are members. So it sounds like that's where maybe the shift in your mind starts happening. Then are there any events that kind of push it forward?
So, a couple. I'll kind of briefly. It wasn't just one big bang, it wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of little things like, so again, back to the whole thing with my grandparents. From a very young age in the Mormon faith, they're ready to get young girls. I mean, let's just be honest, they kind of get you on the path to be in that homemaker role of being a wife and a mom.
As much as we've
Wedding.
talked about, in our episodes,
Mission.
that our lives were being geared towards preparing us for a mission, the girls in the church, their lives are more geared to becoming that
the homemaker,
housekeeper.
the homemaker,
Not
mother.
I said housekeeper.
Wheezy.
Wait,
Wheezy.
whoa.
No, but being that mom
The
and
wheezy
that
was the
wife and
housekeeper.
taking care of the family and the house, and that's so we're
Yeah.
geared towards mission. You're geared
Homemakers.
towards that.
Homemakers.
Homemakers,
Not
not
housekeepers.
housekeepers.
Sorry.
Homewreckers.
Homemakers.
And homewreckers.
That's what
So
Homemakers. Yeah, homemakers for sure. And that's what the lessons that we studied as young women were around, the Relief Society crafts, getting married. So, of course, I was a young girl in Southern California seeing these huge Catholic weddings with the dress and the whole nine and the limos and all of that. And you get here and it's like, go to the temple and then you go to the ward house to the cultural hall because it's free because you're 19 and
And that's where you have your wedding
That's
reception.
where you have
That
your
was
wedding
like
reception,
going to the
'cause it's
Sahara
free.
Desert because it's so dry, and I've never been there, but it's dry.
What is?
Mormon weddings.
Oh,
Mormon
the
weddings
the
compared to like
buttermints cups with the nuts, and you walk in, and it's like this basketball. I
Court.
wanted more than a basketball.
You're
court
having
for
a
my
wedding on a literal basketball court.
And they've got streamers coming off of
from the basketball hoop.
So
Some
in
lights.
Mormon chapels, part of the chapel is what they call the cultural hall, and it's really just the basketball court, and where they have.
Why do they call it the cultural hall? Because there is absolutely zero culture taking place
Well, there's
in those halls.
they're
It's
having-
basketball
they're having-
and wedding reception.
It's our
having-
culture. It's our culture.
Maybe it was because
I don't know.
They should have called it the wedding court. That would have been 100% appropriate.
Yeah.
The only thing we ever did in the cultural hall was played basketball or went to
Dinners.
a wedding reception.
Or back in
Or-
the
Oh.
80s, we had our
Oh, we had the fucking Pinewood Derby in the cultural hall.
Pinewood Derbies
Yeah.
and the
There was talent shows.
talent
we
show.
had
What's the
there?
talent show called?
Roadshow.
Road shows.
Yeah. So
Maybe that's why it's called cultural hall, because it's the
yeah.
art of the road shows.
So knowing that was
The culture of roadshows.
I wonder if there's any video.
I got a video of me.
Somebody Google that and see if there's videos of Mormon road shows.
I have a video of me at like.
Is it on Google?
I can send it to you.
Oh, you should put it on Google so everyone can watch it.
All right, I will do that.
So I did not really fancy having my future wedding, for one, in a cultural hall, I mean, whatever. But two, the biggest thing was, so, you strive to go get married in the temple, but only those that carry a temple recommend.
So I was just going to say, let's set this up a little bit. So we've talked about temples being a holy place for Mormons where they go to perform special ceremonies, one being weddings, where they're married for a time in all eternity.
Ordinances. They call it.
Forever.
What did I say?
Use it special.
Well,
That sounds a
Forever.
little
Fine.
Mr. Rogers.
Sacred.
It's
Forever.
sacred.
So anyway,
Sacred, not
They're
secret.
sacred
but in order to be
ordinances.
able to go into the temple, members have to go through an interview process and be deemed worthy to hold a temple recommend.
It's a 2-interview process.
Okay.
Because you're meeting with your bishop.
But you have to
and
be deemed
the
worthy
state president.
to
Your
get
bishop?
a temple recommend, which allows you to get into the Mormon temples. And so
If you're found worthy.
not all members get to go to the temple, let alone non-members. Non-members don't have that opportunity because they would have to be baptized. To get
What are
into
some of the requirements to be able to go to the temple?
Tithing.
You have to give 10% of your income.
Maybe the law of chastity, the law
word
of
of wisdom.
the word of wisdom.
And the word of wisdom is also you're not drinking tea
Dr.
or-
Pepper.
Yeah, well,
When I was a
We talked
kid,
about that.
there's
when I was a
certain
kid.
loopholes. There's certain loopholes
Right,
that people.
right. Well, the
but
people
tea
by people
and
you
coffee,
Mormons.
no.
That was always, I think, kind of one of those wives' tales that got so popular that people thought that caffeine was part of the word of wisdom.
No, there was an actual general authority that spoke during general
I thought
conference.
you can't have
in the
like,
80s.
soda.
In the
No.
80s, a general conference gave a general authority gave a conference at a general authority
At general
gave a
conference.
talk at general conference and said that members needed to be abstaining from anything that the spirit was like pulling them towards. And
Because
I remember my
caffeine
parents coming home and being like,
that-
dumping the Dr. Pepper down the drain, being like,
Because
What are you
caffeine's that
doing?
stimulant
Pepsi.
that
yeah,
controls
like
people.
But
So
Mid-80s.
You
They
have to-
have stock in.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Anheuser-Busch,
never been an official church thing.
Anheuser-Busch
That's why.
beer, by the way.
But
It's
does
not part
but
of the word of
BYU
wisdom.
doesn't sell
Food
caffeine.
Yes,
for
they do.
thought there.
Now they do.
They
You're
now.
right.
But for
They didn't
years and years, it was
because-
always
right.
the Diet Coke.
For years I knew.
Right.
Yeah.
Caffeine-free Pepsi.
But what I'm saying is, it wasn't ever
Dr.
part of official
Thunder.
church doctrine, and that's how they're able to change it.
Hey, if you think that caffeine is against the word of wisdom, comment in the comment section.
And if you do, this is probably not the show.
Why are
for
you watching this?
Where did you stumble on?
Jesus knows
The
All right.
last thing you
So
think-
Okay,
you've got to
so-
do all of that to be able to get a temple recommend to be able to go to the temple.
And
What's
So now-
which one is the hardest for most members?
for
What are you talking about?
paying tithing.
Oh,
Like to
tithing?
get in. Which one do you think is the one that... I'm just... Come on.
I know, but it's
We're
a
freestyling.
tangent.
We're freestyling.
I would say
Tithing because
tithing and coffee.
Well,
I bet
chastity
people
is the biggest one.
yeah, but a lot of people lie.
Cheers
a
to
lot,
that
a
one.
lot
Well,
of
it's
people,
still the biggest one.
Cheers to
But
that
not
one.
like
Well, I
married
know,
couples.
but
right?
like the biggest
What do you mean?
one.
Married couples watch porn.
Oh, that's not allowed either. Yeah, okay.
But definitely tithing because they keep records.
Well,
and you're
regardless,
supposed-
they all you have to be doing both essentially. But
Right,
I would
right,
still
right.
say law of chastity is a bigger issue.
It is.
I'm sure they pretty much go hand in hand. If you weren't paying tithing, you're paying for your porn. So it's kind of a double.
So you've got 2 memberships, or maybe just one.
All right, so
I don't know.
anyhow,
I'm just sorry.
so
Edit that out.
you've talked about earlier your vision of what a wedding was what you saw at the Catholic Church growing up.
And everything
Now
else
you're
on
looking
TV.
to get married,
Yeah.
and you're having to do it the Mormon way. But not only that, but your family members that are most important to you outside of your
Aren't
mom
allowed.
can't come.
The ones that you love the most can't come to your
And
wedding.
for me, it was like this. And I don't know why it just registered this way with me, but basically, I felt like I had to go to my grandparents, whom I love and respected and adored and admired, and say, basically, you aren't worthy, and so we'll just meet you at the cultural hall.
Afterwards.
At the
for
wedding.
reception.
And again, they're not coming. They're not
Right.
coming from down the street, or
No, they're coming from
They're
California.
coming from California, wanting to see the actual
Yeah.
ceremony and being told that, hey, we're gonna have to have you.
So
guys stay
that's
here.
amazing. So you talked about the whole idea of being groomed to be a mom and a
Yeah.
wife and all that stuff. So, all right. So that's a pretty big
Yeah.
thing. Your grandparents not being able to come to your wedding. So you said there was several things. What are some other things that kind of push you over?
So I was sitting I had to have been about 16. And again, asking questions about things and not getting answers, getting a lot of, we'll take it with faith, sort it out later, blah, blah, blah. And I remember my seminary teacher asking us, we were talking about having a testimony. I don't remember exactly in what context, but he was like, and who in here has a testimony and, wants to share? And like 30 fucking hands go up. So I'm sitting there and I'm somewhere in the middle. And of course my hand was one of them. And
I'm one of the people in there that's like,
Don't
pick me.
Don't pick me.
Don't pick me.
Please,
Just ignore me. Don't pick me.
Well
Just
done.
leave me alone.
No way, dude. Because if you could give a good testimony, you could earn
Score some
points.
the
Sure.
girls
could.
noticed
I
you, right?
I was
Is that-
not
I
in
was-
there
I mean,
before.
yeah.
I was not thinking of any of that. I was just
Yeah.
like, don't pick me. I don't want to stand.
Because I have 0 testimony.
Hey, I want to know what that testimony would look like. Stand up and give it.
No, the church is true.
The church is true.
No,
I
Joseph
love my
Smith
mom and
to be a
dad.
I'm
true
grateful for my
prophet.
family.
Joseph Smith was a true
Smith
prophet.
is a true prophet. I hope they're calling on a mission.
And that
In the
Amen.
name of
is
Jesus Christ.
exactly
In the name of Michael Jordan. Amen.
what I heard in that seminary class that day. And it was like I was having this like matrix out of the body experience where I'm hearing like, it looked like robots in my mind of just this like,
Conditioned to regurgitate.
What blows
The
me
same
away is that you had that ability to see that for what it was, and a lot like Sean did.
Not us.
Not us. Like I was just sitting there going, okay, like it's gonna be my turn
was just
next.
life.
What am I gonna say?
It was just
how
life.
can I remember going, how can I think of telling a story about something that happened in my last couple of days that I can tie in? Because when people bore their testimonies and got up and gave like a story, I was like, so the other day I was driving my dump truck and the Holy Ghost told me don't go down 57th Street, and I didn't. So I took 23rd, and there was a big blow up on 57th Street. And I know this church is true. I know that the Holy Ghost was telling
and
me.
you're like
what?
goosebumps.
And you're like,
wow,
like
that's
everybody would get up and tell a
amazing.
story like that. So I'm sitting there going, okay, what story? What can I
Did you ever make up a
I
story?
can't talk about that. No, I never.
I wasn't
never-
ever thinking about what stories I could tell. Mine was, I don't have any story like that. Like, what's wrong with me?
Did you ever get up there and just blank out?
Like, what's wrong with me? But just like, okay, why? I don't have anything like that to tell.
I was in it to put off the image that I was. It's almost like hypnosis, where if you've ever gone on stage during a hypnotist act, I did it once in Las Vegas. Like, you're awake and you're just going, okay, I'm going to go along with this. As the guys tell me to run around the stage and cluck like a chicken every time he says horny. It was a late night hypnotist show.
Adult hypnotist.
So you were faking the hypnotist show?
Of course, to go along with it. And in a lot of cases, I think that's what a lot of people in the church are doing, is they're just going along with it. So I was that kid that was going, what can I say so I can convince these guys that I'm going along with it? And
because here's to go back to your analogy. If you're the person who doesn't go along with the hypnotist,
you're the asshole that they go, oh, okay, so we're going to go ahead and take you off the fucking stage, and they kick your ass off the stage.
Oh,
and
that's what happens at hypnotist shows with the one person that's sitting the whole time going, I'm not going to put my head down, motherfucker, and I'm certainly not going to go, every time you say
you're the one
ding-dong.
Ruining the show.
Right.
And in this situation,
if
you're the one person who's not giving that testimony,
you're in it, you're committed to it by not by choice, but by birth. You're committed to it, so you might as well go along. So my philosophy was, when I was in seminary during a situation like that, I was like, okay, what spiritually inspiring story can I come up with to add that extra oomph to my testimony? Because I don't want to just stand up and say the same thing. If I'm going to act, I'm going to just put on a show. And that was Jesus Christ up till I was 21 years old.
Right. And it's interesting because going back to what we were talking about earlier, like, oh, please, God, don't choose me. Because, yeah, there were times that I wanted to get up there to impress. But you get up there and you're like, I have zero thought right now because I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
We've talked about, and what you were alluding to, we've talked about how when in a situation like this, it's all exactly the same testimony. And it's like, I don't want to get up there and just recite this memorized testimony that everyone gives.
And that's the
but I don't have anything else to say.
Like, when did you think that? Were you thinking that in seminary? So you're what, Thetan level 7? Is that what you say he was on back then? Because I wasn't even thinking, Jesus Christ, don't pick me. I was going, it's almost my turn. It's almost my turn. I'm so excited. Like, I loved when we moved into a ward and we got to speak.
I think part of that is, like you said, you're a showman. That's not a negative thing. Why do you look at like
you like to present? You like to speak.
We talked about how the first time I ever saw you, you were the MC for the mission conference. You're an entertainer.
You're comfortable being in front of others.
Are you?
Right?
So
you're vain.
I'm like a clown. Is that what I am?
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you.
Yes, you're kind of like a clown.
I'm vain.
You're a vain clown.
Is there truth to what
vain?
you say? Thank you, cute Carly Simon. Do you really think there's truth in? Am I vain?
I'm not. That was a joke.
No,
I don't think you're vain. I'm just saying.
What I'm saying is you're comfortable speaking.
You're a presenter.
They're suppressing so much desire to go, yes!
You're a dick.
No, your whole life you've been presenting.
Whoa! I'm a dick?
Oh, wait. Too soon? Too much?
Vain and a dick. That's a big gap.
So, it's been fun. I'm going to go.
All right. Look, you're our first guest. We're learning how to do this and not forget about it.
Okay, so let's bring this back up.
Bring that back in. Yeah.
So, the whole idea of this mechanized, robotic testimony that everybody's giving, you're just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I was like, it's all the same. You unoriginal bastards.
I already heard that one, you fucking unoriginal bastard!
The other thing that
No, I know.
I thought was weird was the whole, have you guys gone into like baptisms for the dead
I've done
thing?
We've all done it.
No, we talked about it on
Have
the
you
show.
talked about it?
No, we talked about it on the first time we shot this episode. We haven't talked about it in ours. I don't
But
think.
they've never seen us talk about
that's what I'm saying.
baptisms for the dead.
So,
by name alone, when I was like, okay, now what are we doing?
Are these family members?
Part
or are these
of-
just anybody?
hold on. What
are we doing?
We got to explain. So, part of the special
And if
ceremonies.
you know me now, like
that
that
are-
would make more sense.
Some
but I was a
of the
little
ceremonies
freaked out.
that the Mormon Church
Ordinances
that they perform in their temples. One is baptisms for the dead, where you're literally, you go there as a young teenager. We were teenagers doing this. We were being baptized.
And they would say, Richard Lee Howard,
in the name.
I baptize you on behalf of Ezekiel Jebediah Smith, who is dead.
Or Abraham Lincoln, who is dead. I mean, it's literally.
Did you do any celebrities?
No, I don't think I did, but
I didn't.
But it's certainly been done. So, but the point is that in the Mormon Church, they say that everybody will have a chance to hear the gospel according to the church, whether that's in this life or the next. And if they didn't get to hear about it, they still have to have the baptismal ordinance done for them. And so
you're doing it as
it's done in proxy for you as you're dead.
We've talked about the temple being
But then you can accept it in heaven. You can accept the whole process in heaven.
So like married couples can go and be married and sealed for other people, you can baptize people.
Yeah, the adults do. The adults do the endowments for the dead.
But because I was 8 and baptized,
and you hadn't been introduced to what goes on in the temple.
Nothing
special.
Because I was sealed. I was part of that.
Yeah, but you didn't know about the endowment.
No, none of that.
That's how they get the youth involved in the temple, or helping to prepare them for the temple, is to do the baptisms and
let's face it, I mean, Mormon temples are some of the most beautiful buildings that you'll see. You go in there, it's this beautiful place, and it's this place of reverence, and you're kind of trained to want to come back.
But then you go for the endowment session, and you're like, hey, what?
So
what's going on? Like, huh? Okay, wait, why are you wearing that, dude? Like, what is
That's
happening?
a whole nother thing.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, so you jump into that. Okay, go ahead.
So baptisms for the dead.
So, okay. Again, I was kind of new to this whole thing. I didn't see my parents going to the temple. They didn't do that for date night, even when they were, like, full on. So I just remember walking through.
Did your guys' parents go to?
My parents did. Yes.
My parents would go out on Friday nights and they'd take their suitcases.
Yes.
I'd be like, why are you taking the fucking suitcase?
You guys
and why are you in a tie?
What can
And
you
they'd be
fit
like,
in there?
oh, we're going to the temple.
I remember maybe once in a while, but not like a regular thing like it's supposed to be. You're supposed to go at least once a month.
I think my parents would go. Like, they'd go out every Friday night for date night. And they'd go out once a month. I mean, okay, I remember them going.
But you didn't grow up with this.
Nope.
And so...
Tom and Connie didn't go to the temple?
Not that I remember.
Oh.
No. It was like...
There was a reason they probably didn't.
Once they made it to...
The sealing?
Like, he did that for my mom. I know that because the second that ink was fucking signed on that recommend and that sealing was done...
I'm done.
So
It wasn't the ink being signed, it was the garments being distributed. Once he got the garments and started wearing the...
But he did... Okay, so it was kind of a la carte. So, like, he would do some things, and he would go to church sometimes, but he would not accept callings, because he just didn't want to commit to that. And...
Smart.
So, true story, in the basement of our house, he would brew his own beer down there. And... he had these bottles, and he would make his own label. And our neighborhood was called the Orchard, so he had this label, Orchard Secret, because, like...
It was done in secret.
God forbid everybody knew.
Oh,
yeah,
that's brilliant.
So,
good on Tom for that.
Like, I would remember coming home, and I just at the end of the process, after you bottle it all, you have kind of that mix that doesn't quite fit into a bottle. But it's all been, like, fermenting, like, the longest.
And they sell that to Australia.
He would drink that, and, he'd be
Lights out?
wrecked.
Lights out.
We'd come home, and he finished it up.
He had the Vegemite.
Yeah. So, I mean, but there was like liquor in a liquor cabinet that we had upstairs. Like when family would come to town, obviously, if they would drink or my grandparents would smoke so it was just kind of like, it wasn't a thing. Like it wasn't like, ooh, this is like evil or anything. Because the people that, I loved did that.
This was still normal.
So is this,
because
so
you'd seen it.
Is the point you're making that they weren't regularly going to the church? That wasn't a regular thing in your life. So then you find out about baptisms for the dead, and so it's even more it's even more crazy to you because that wasn't really a part of your.
No, I go to the temple and I see these people carrying around these little suitcases. I'm glad you brought it up because that was weird. But then, I remember like my first time. So you're like wearing this like white. What you get baptized in, but dude, you're like a teenager now.
It's like like a white onesie.
This is like a jumpsuit that you zip up.
And you can't be wearing like your pink bra under it and shit. Like
somebody failed to tell me that I should.
We wanted them to.
Were you wearing a pink bra?
We wanted them to.
We would do this as like a combined. Did you do this as combined?
Yeah, but we were never in there with the chicks going in there.
The guys were separate.
You would
the girls
watch
were
them in
separate.
that little.
Yeah, that's right.
You would watch
there
them
was
in
a window that they could open up, and you
fucking,
could be like, "Is Jen wearing a pink bra?" No. God damn it.
Well, no, okay. So first off, it's weird, and then it's not just the baptismal font in like a ward. It's like and there's this like balcony of like an opera house.
It's an oxen.
It's
12 oxen
Yes.
in this tub. We'll show a
intense.
picture of it. And the 12 oxen represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Thank you. I was going to get it, but I'm glad you guys were there. Just in case, because I thought Israel, but I was like, is that being anti-Semitic?
We got your 6.
So the 12 oxen represent.
So it's this really
it's like big
special.
You come down this long like staircase where you're in a line
and you're
waiting.
You
come down and it's.
You stand up to go
God,
wait
baptisms for
to
the
like
dead.
to get
all the
your
holy
turn.
lights.
So you get your turn. I don't know, like it would depend on how many names were there and how many of us. It would depend, like maybe you would get 8 or 12 or whatever people. So I remember sitting.
So it's not just being necessarily baptized for one person. You might be baptized for multiple people.
Yeah, you're like going down 8 times because Mormons believe in baptism by immersion. So they'd be like, dunk you, and they'd be like, boom.
It was a marathon.
And they'd be like, all right, here we go again.
In the night.
Jennifer Renee Metler, I baptize you on behalf of Jessica.
And I had the guy that had the worst
halitosis.
Breath.
No, reading names. Like
because they're reading this teleprompter, and it's just like
Aaron.
We're talking 80s, 90s technology, where it was probably some old lady sitting behind a desk, being like, "Oh shit, I gotta fix. Hold on," and she'd like to slide it under like a projector machine, and it would sometimes be crooked. So the guy in the water's like, "Jennifer Renee Metler, I baptize you on behalf of who is dead." In the name of the, boom, bam, dunk you, then pull you back up, and then they do it again, and you do it like 8 or 9 times.
So he said the name like really wrong, and people started kind of giggling behind me. So I got the nervous giggles, and as I'm going, I'm getting dunked, and I'm now coughing, and I'm like causing quite the scene.
That's where Stone gets it from. The giggles.
Yeah,
the nervous
just
giggles.
like, I was probably hiccuping like the whole thing, and no, it was just weird, and I'm like, this is, like, do these people, like, do they know? Okay, so this is how I visualize things. What I was taught, back me up if I'm right or wrong, because I could totally be wrong, and I'll own it. But according to the plan of salvation, like, if you weren't given the opportunity to hear the gospel in this life, you were sitting in, like, a waiting room.
Yeah. It was spirit prison or spirit paradise.
So if you're right. You're in like a waiting room. The people who are members are off teaching the people in the waiting rooms. This is how I always was taught, that we're teaching the people who haven't heard the gospel while they were on earth, and that's where the baptisms for the dead come in.
And then all of a sudden, like,
now they have the opportunity.
We would baptize, and then they'd go, "Thank you."
They'd be able to put down their highlights magazine.
Little Halo guys.
They can say, "Yes, I accept it now," or "No, I don't." And if they say, "Yes, I did, I accept it," then the baptism for the dead goes into effect for them.
Yeah,
Yes.
but how did
that's exactly
how
right.
did that name get... Okay.
That's
is-
exactly right.
So one thing, if you don't know about the Mormon Church, is they're huge on genealogy. They've got probably one of, if not the best genealogical systems there is.
True.
And part of that process is going back and baptizing people from history who weren't members of the church to give them a chance to hear the gospel when they're in this waiting room in heaven.
And that's
to
where
then being able to have that ordinance of being baptized into the church.
And they start hitting you at a young age in primary with a primary song that goes...
About baptism for the dead?
There is not one episode.
Genealogy, I am doing it. My genealogy.
I'm not going to sing it. No. Because you know what I'm going to be...
And the reason why I am doing... Do you remember the song?
I'm going to be driving...
That's what I'm saying. Is like,
this
at a
song.
little age, so you're in the temple, they're just going, this is genealogy. We're doing genealogy. And you're singing the song.
Okay, so here's my whole thing.
Oh, God, Ann.
And this leads to another point that just didn't make sense and what frustrated me. But so my grandparents had every opportunity in this life. They have both crossed over. They both, because we were LDS, they had the opportunity to hear it. They wanted no part of it.
But did they go, like, I always thought it of as they would have had to go through the discussions with missionaries and say no.
Well,
see, and that was
that
was the gray area.
I've never heard that.
Because I was told that.
Well, what she's saying is that they would have known about it because they were members, so they knew about it, but they didn't accept it, so they're done.
I know,
but they had the opportunity through Connie. Connie was like, "Hey, have you heard about the Mormon
That's
Church?"
what I'm saying.
And they were like, "No, thanks. We're not interested."
That's what I'm saying is that wouldn't have qualified for hearing about the gospel of being able to accept or reject it.
Are you
in
sure?
my opinion.
But again, that was left up to interpretation many times.
But what does Russell M. Nelson think about that?
Well,
Russell, if you'll comment in the sections
hey,
below,
Rusty,
like I would like to know.
I think that it would be a matter of they would have to have a chance to hear the entirety of the gospel. Like you would tell in the...
But the entirety of the
because
gospel...
We talk 10% of the
six
gospel.
Discussions?
In those discussions.
Well, what I mean is they would have to have the opportunity to hear all of that information and either accept it or reject it rather than
I get what you're saying.
Having a member of your family be a Mormon and say, oh, I know about the Mormon Church, but I don't want it, so now I'm rejected. They would have to go through the process of actually being taught the gospel.
That's a possible...
Again, that's why I was saying that's the gray area that you'd never get a straight answer.
But because to you, how have you always seen that? Because you were saying...
my thought was, okay, for somebody that's living in a different country that like has never heard of it, never got it, like I totally get. They're up there, they're waiting, they're going to get the lessons, whatever. But my grandparents had the opportunity. They knew people and they said, no, thank you. So, all right. They pass away. Now, according to the Mormon theology and the plan of salvation, they are in the waiting room or whatever.
Purgatory, right? For like
Spirit prison.
Purgatory is after you've been judged.
Spirit prison is where those souls go who haven't heard the gospel or haven't accepted it and will be given the opportunity. Correct. Or they denied it and they're just the fuckers that are in the corner.
Waiting for judgment.
And you're waiting for judgment. Yeah. You can't go back in the chapel, is what they say to those people. Right. You're over there.
See,
don't you dare go into that chapel.
Like,
we've heard this before.
Yes.
It's all Mormon. Like, that's it. This is the one plan, and because my grandparents said
you have one chance and one chance only, so don't mess this up.
Well, I mean, that's most major religions, right? This is the truth, this is the way, it's this way, or kind of screwed.
I think I don't know. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know if the Catholic Church thinks that Baptists are fucked because they're not Catholic and they haven't taken the Eucharist and they haven't done the Holy Communion.
I'm sure each thinks that their own is their own, and you know.
Anyways, the point is, you're sitting there going, "Wait, my grandparents, from your perspective, do you know that they had the discussions?"
They did not.
Are you sure?
Did not want them. No. Never had them. No.
Okay, so you're still saying they turned it down, flat out.
Your thought process.
And your thought process is, they've turned it down here. why are you baptizing them? That's offensive to them
because
they were
they
here and they didn't want it.
So I think that's, in fact, the church has gotten into a little bit of trouble for that, particularly with famous people that they baptize in the family.
Well,
is like,
especially people from the
time
Holocaust.
out.
Who gave you permission to baptize our family member or whatever?
Well, remember, I think it was back in the 90s. I mean, it was within the last couple decades, but yeah, they got in a lot of hot water for the
celebrities and stuff.
That's what
celebrities,
was saying.
but Holocaust.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
Holocaust victims.
So it's a
Hitler was baptized.
It's interesting. It's
I've
crazy.
heard that.
And as a teenager,
I just thought it was shady.
As a teenager, to be participating in it and being the main part of it, it's kind of a crazy thing. So amongst these other things that have happened to you, now this, and you're like, what the hell is this all about? So you've got all these things that are making you start questioning. Mm-hmm. So is there a particular thing that maybe kind of shoves you over the edge completely?
So I was, that was probably my, when I left, my interview with the bishop at 18. And it was nothing dramatic.
So what was the interview for?
This was just me, but every birthday we had an interview where you would go in.
It wasn't just you. It was everybody on their birthday.
That was a whole, even girl,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so everybody.
Did you think it was just you?
Young men?
No, but I had a lot of friends that wouldn't go.
No, when you start hitting puberty, they want to make sure you're not masturbating and stuff, and so they start making you meet with them every year.
So Jen,
you're not masturbating, are you? Essentially,
no,
what else was that about?
I was seriously for me, that was never even, because I was a good girl. I wasn't ever doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing.
Well, right.
What was that look that you just gave Kashana's
these rules and the structure and these...
We've heard this. Before.
We've heard that story. But...
Sean. I've heard some stories.
It's kind of a check-in to make sure you're still...
Every year,
you're on the track.
Every year you get an interview by your bishop, and they ask you, are you living the word of wisdom? And so at 14 years old, you're like, do
you believe Joseph Smith to be a true prophet?
The taste of beer. Right. Do you believe that Joseph Smith is a prophet? You're being interviewed by the leader of the church who just is Ted at the sales company that sells computer programs. And he's also been called to be the bishop of the ward. And they're conducting what they call worthiness interviews, starting at age 12 for the rest of your life in the church. And they ask you questions. Are you living the law of chastity?
So what was it about yours in particular that made you say, okay, that's it?
So back up just a second, because you guys made me remember something. Remember something. So my sister had gotten pregnant at 18, not married.
And so that's probably a big deal
But
anywhere. But here, so that
Farmington,
we've talked about
98%.
We've talked extensively in our episodes about how being sent home from our missions was the worst thing we could ever imagine. For a girl, I would imagine that is the equivalent. That getting pregnant outside of wedlock as a teenager, nonetheless, in a fully Mormon community has to be right there with it.
And I remember sitting there, and she was showing at this point, and I remember sitting, that one of the last rows before it turns into the cultural hall and the accordion doors. So we had kind of snuck in, we're sitting one of the back rows, and I remember... And you got to understand now where we're sitting and why I say that. When the sacrament gets passed, and, you only take the sacrament if you're worthy and living the...
So you're remaking certain promises to God when you take the sacrament. And
obviously being
pregnant, there's always those certain people that you're looking at. Are they gonna take it? And there's sometimes where you're thinking...
these eyes.
If I don't take it,
you could see people turn their heads all the way to the back of the fucking auditorium.
Oh yeah,
and the whispers.
Sorry,
you heard the whispers.
Let me say something, because I said getting sent home from the mission for us, it was kind of the equivalent. I would actually say getting pregnant as a woman was worse, because what's one of the worst things you can do in the Mormon church?
Have sex.
Have sex outside of marriage.
Yeah.
So from a spiritual aspect, from a how your spiritual well-being is, that's much worse than getting, depending on what you get sent home from your mission for.
So here the whole California.
Dude, we're having a serious conversation here, and
I'm just thinking of that scene from.
Right. Well, we're having a serious conversation.
So you have this reputation that my sister and I were given, and it was just kind of like.
Like you already said, it was already given to you just
How
because
did you
came from
get it?
California. Because they were from California.
That's it.
You
wild,
California
hairy,
horrors.
crazy hippies.
Yeah. So it was hard. Now, knowing myself now, and how easily affected by energy I am, not knowing that obviously back then, but being very sensitive to those things and just feeling heartbroken for my sister because I know she felt that. And
because now she's the town.
Oh, it had to be
drunk. She's the town clown. Because
it had to be so embarrassing.
No, call it what they thought. She's just a
slut.
She's just a little slut. She's the town whore. She's I'm trying to put it into their wording.
It's the whole
It's
Jesus
the judgmental.
And they can say it and go, she's not morally clean.
And that was my whole loyalty to my family that was
because families taught that family's everything, and now
y'all are saying family
and now
forever
they're trying to
unless...
divide. Now they're trying to divide the family because...
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Connie,
your daughter?
She's a whore.
So this brings me to my other point of the whole with the plan of salvation, okay? So here's my family, and my mom is the one that she's going every Sunday. She's the Relief Society president. She's got the calling. She's doing the thing. She's living that life.
Real quick, the plan of salvation. Oh. So the plan of salvation, in
really
very basic terms, is we are spirits. We're born to the earth and get our physical bodies. We're here to learn and grow spiritually, be baptized and accept the gospel, and then to return back to Heavenly Father in the celestial kingdom, as we've talked before. While we're here, we get sealed to our families, and we're meant to go back and live together forever as a family. So,
how fucked up is that? Can you imagine kicking Stone out and being like, "Hey, I know you're comfortable here, but you got to get the fuck out."
Well, let me explain.
Here's a list of rules.
That's what I'm explaining. So, with the celestial kingdom, you also have the other two. So you have 3, but then you have 3 sub-levels within each. So technically you have 9 different possible levels,
it's 3
right?
in the celestial kingdom.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got the telestial and then...
No, I'm on with her. I was always
taught
there was
9 different levels?
And then there's 3 levels in each one.
Yeah.
I never heard about the 9.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard about the 6.
But regardless of whether it's 3, 6, or 9,
I'm not saying that you didn't.
The point is that you might not end up all in the same place.
We're supposed to be sealed, which I was, to my family, not my sister, but my parents and then my brother. So off the bat, I know, here's my mom. Well, my stepdad's not doing what he needs to be doing, orchard secret. So, he's...
Where do you put him? Come on.
I'm not going to go there.
No,
it's not my place
you
to
know
judge.
him.
No, it's not my place to judge. But I know that, but then, now, as adults, I reflect on that and go, okay, so I was a member. I supposedly had a testimony. I know now that I really didn't, but I thought that I did. But anyway, I said, no, I don't. And I've taken my name off the records. And, I've committed the worst sin you could do in the eyes of the LDS faith. And according to that plan, I am in what's called, let's all say it.
Perdition?
Outer darkness.
Purgatory? Right.
Time out forever.
She just said it, and you still fucked it up.
Let's all say that again.
Purgatory.
Outer darkness.
Send demons.
We're missionaries.
There's certainly a number of different...
Yeah, but I was just trying to follow you.
I didn't know exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't think
sorry.
I didn't know Outer Darkness.
He kind of knew what you were talking about, but he could not get the right word.
Sean was translating for the Catholics. Thank you for being our bilingual
and a couple of
counterpart.
Right.
But she told you it, and then you said the wrong thing.
Perdition's my favorite one, though.
Perdition,
Okay.
purgatory,
Sons of Perdition.
Right.
Sons of
All right.
Anarchy.
So
Outer Darkness. So then, so again, and when I've asked my mom this question, and I'm like, okay, but Mom, like, you're not going to be with everybody. Oh, another little bullshit little fine print for you. Apparently, you can only go down to visit. You can't go up. So,
Yep.
like, if you're here and your mom is here, visiting hours are every other Tuesday between 7 and 5, she can go down, but she's
is
not
that-
going to...
Get used
is
to
that
it,
a bad
because there's
thing?
Uncle Joey. Jailbird Joey.
Well, first
So
off...
the idea is that if you're sent to one of the other lower
Yeah.
kingdoms, you're stuck there. That's really the penalties that you're stuck there. You can't go up, but yeah, you were always taught that your family members and friends could come down to visit you, but you couldn't.
And again, back to my grandparents. Okay, so if, here I am 13, 14 doing everything
Your
I'm
grandparents are
supposed to
chilling
do.
in the terrestrial.
The
Right in
mid-
the middle.
the
Right in
mid-
the, oh, fuck yeah.
If they were
They were
lucky.
good people. Yeah, maybe they told the church to
They
fuck
didn't
off,
kill
but they
anybody,
didn't deny the
they
Holy
didn't-
Ghost. Yeah, they weren't doing
Well, that's where I
heinous
wanted to
things.
be anyway, to be honest with you.
They
The whole
were in the
time I'm
terrestrial.
like, if I go to Celestial Kingdom, is this the shit I have to do for eternity?
Yeah, it sounded like
scriptures?
church. I remember them saying Joseph Smith had a vision of the Celestial Kingdom, and he was like, "Oh, it was glorious. People
No,
were running
it was
around,
the Celestial Kingdom.
and they were working."
And the quote was that if I
Even
told you
saw, yes.
anything about that place, you would kill yourself to get
get
there
there.
now.
But what I'm talking about is he talked about how they were busy running around doing church work, and I'm going, dude, I fucking hate church. Like, I don't want to die to go to church. Like, that was what I remember
Yeah.
thinking. So I was like, I'm gonna fly cool in the terrestrial kingdom. I'll be okay there.
To me, it sounded like extraterrestrial, like you sounded like an alien to me.
Well,
I don't know why. I mean,
What's the same word?
terrestrial. I guess yes, I was just like, that's weird.
drop the extra terrestrial.
'Cause I think that's where they got
That's
it
the
from.
first time
And,
I've
and
ever
then you
thought that.
and then
I
you
learned that today.
realize
And that's
I'm
wonderful.
like at an Amway concert right now.
So,
So
Okay.
Okay. So all that.
So all of this happens, and
that
then you
so you're in
is
this
just-
interview.
You said your interview.
And he knew, like, the bishop knew me. I mean, I had seen him Sundays at the presidency meetings when I was president of my young women's class, and I was, involved in seminary, and like I was drinking that Kool-Aid full on. And so he started asking me, like, what's your plan for your future? You're 18, And I had friends that I went to high school with, my age, sent to BYU on a very expensive tuition, specifically to find a husband, not to get a degree. Because they knew if they went to BYU, they would get in
All
with
Return
the
missionaries that are
missionaries.
filtering in after
Yeah.
they go there maybe for a year before they go, then they go on their mission, they come back, and you've got this stream of new
And it's-
elders
and it's
coming.
Did you
Crazy.
guys ever go to EFY?
Kind of like ZCMI.
No, hell no.
EFY
No,
education?
no. So we
No.
talked about this the first time we filmed this episode, but that was not something that was really. I never heard of EFY until later in my life. Like,
EFY.
Especially for youth. It was a week-long camp. You would go to one of the either BYU
It was you go to
It was
Rick's,
BYU,
you go
Idaho.
to Rick's or BYU, and it was from Monday until Saturday, and it was just
Church
a
camp,
week
wasn't it?
of
Yeah,
church,
church
camp.
camp.
Yeah,
It was
but
so
But
fun.
that
No,
was not,
it
that was not
was-
marketed to us growing
it
up in
was
Utah.
the hookup. You went to EFY to go meet the girls and to go
Sorry.
hang out, to get away from family. And yeah, you had to go to like some church classes. But all I remember was hanging out with
They
the
had a
girls.
dance.
Yeah.
I remember doing a dance under the stadium of BYU in that, underneath
The
it. Because I
corridor
think
there?
it was supposed to be on the field, but it rained, so they had it.
Oh,
Under
fucking
the-
under the
Under the
bleachers?
Huh?
That's a
Well,
shitty
that's
place to have a dance.
I mean, well, the music was under and stuff, and yeah.
But I was at Rick's. I went, and that was where 17-year-old Scott, getting ready to think about going on a mission, turning 18, had this. Okay, the church is true. So EFY was geared towards getting you indoctrinated even more.
Because
and
when you're there, from my understanding, it is nonstop. Oh, you feel the Spirit. You feel that.
Testimony.
Yeah, testimony.
You'd have
You feel that.
yeah.
Let's,
Like,
let's invite
I-
the Spirit. And so when you're giving that focus, yeah, you're starting to.
Well, it's like
being in a
anything.
trance, right?
It's like anything. I mean, when you're in a situation like that, even at a game, a sporting event, or a concert, you kind of get wrapped up in the energy that's being put off there.
Collective energy.
And, yeah, and going back to the social aspect that we've talked about that was so good about growing up in the church, it's you're part of something, right?
Yeah.
So how does that relate back to your
So
interview?
I'm 18, and I mean, again, he knew my background, my history, and he's like, what's your plan? And I didn't have any plans to get married anytime soon. One of my passions, one thing I love to do is I love to travel. I wanted to see the world, like I wanted to experience life a little bit. And I didn't really know what that was exactly, but it sure as fuck wasn't a mission or getting married.
I'm not going to BYU. Is that what you're asking? I'm going to BYU.
That wasn't for me.
Do you
And
think you could have gotten into BYU? Were your grades good? Stone, Aria, Tori?
I just had no desire to go there.
But were your grades good?
I
Could you have
what's
gotten into it, do you
What do
think?
they need? What do they
A
usually-
2.0.
Oh, seriously?
To go to BYU?
Oh no, sorry, a 3.5 or something.
It's
So-
like
yeah.
high.
Yeah.
I probably could. Yeah, for sure.
So
I
if
could've
you
gotten
wanted
it.
to, you could have been going.
Definitely, because I was still in seminary. I was.
You were doing
know,
everything you were supposed to do as a Mormon girl.
Yeah, I could have totally. Yeah.
Okay, so you're in your
But-
interview.
He was sorry. I know I'm getting off on tangent, and he just kept questioning me. And then when I was, not telling him I was choosing one of those two paths, it was like,
So you told him you wanted to travel.
yeah.
And he was expecting to.
I wanted option 3, and he was like, "We don't have an option 3," and I was like, "Well,
So
I'm gonna go find out what that is."
So
don't
what
have
was
an
his
option
what was
B,
his reaction
And
when
he
you
was
said?
just putting down my parents. He was putting down me. He was like, "You're ruining your life. How are your parents must not be good because they're allowing you to not." Like, it was like insulting, and I was just like,
And you're 18. How are you able to
Yeah,
process
I'm like-
this? Like, I don't know.
Well, and you're already going.
They're
You've
not
already
bad
had these
people.
other things happen. You've already gone through these other things that are starting to make you
yeah.
say, "Okay, what in the hell is going on
I
here?"
literally walked
And
out
then
of
this
that
happens,
ward
and you're
house,
like-
and I never went back.
Yeah.
That was it. I was like,
So okay, so that was it. That was really the turning
That was
point.
it.
So
no
how did that?
dramatic. There was no coming out to my parents.
That's what I was just gonna say. What
like-
was the transition like out of this? Being that perfect little Mormon girl doing everything you're supposed to do, to now saying I'm done with that. What's that transition like?
My parents approved of the plan.
Of
Or
you
of just doing what I wanted to
traveling
do.
or-
Yeah,
Nice.
like.
But again,
I mean,
they were converts, so
Yeah.
they didn't really have that structure of.
Yeah, they
or
didn't want me.
Lifelong conditioning
Well,
and
I mean, they saw what my sister went through, and they were just like, whatever's gonna make you happy. And I was just like, I'm just gonna get out. So I'm gone. Like, I'm out. And that was the thing, is from at that point, I've never went and lived back in Davis County. So it was never going to Smith's and seeing awkward, having awkward
you never had to deal with the
conversations.
repercussions
Nope.
in your neighborhood that you
Nope.
grew up with of leaving the church in
I was gone.
Utah.
What year was that? 97?
97.
So that was before Facebook
Uh-huh.
or MySpace. So
Yeah.
you just left and you were like,
That was
peace.
it. Peace out.
You cut yourself off, and you were able
Yeah.
to cut yourself off completely. So, what's life like now? You're fully entrenched in the church, doing everything you're supposed to do. Now you're out of it. What's life like now that you're out of the church?
I didn't really like feel dark, or I had gone through a faith crisis or nothing like that. Like, I hear people in these heartbreaking stories of just like they feel lost and empty and they don't have anything. And yes, while I did feel that I think developed more over time. I was just like, woohoo, live life. Like, I'm going to just, and it wasn't even about doing the stuff that I wasn't allowed to do. It wasn't like, I'm going to go, try some drugs.
It was just the freedom of being able to do it if you wanted to.
I remember
and not feel guilty about it.
I remember being told the reason that you've left the church is because you want to just live a life of sin. Yeah. You want to just drink and you want to just do all these things. And that's got nothing to do with I just left the church and, oh, hey, bonus, now that I've left the church, I can do whatever the fuck I want without feeling guilty for it. And you just lived your life.
Yeah.
That's a lot like how I experienced it. I just went, I'm just going to go live my life. But it's frustrating. And fortunately for you, you weren't connected to a lot of people going, well, she's just...
There was no family reunions where that was happening. There was no... It was just kind of like I just...
It was easy.
My life today, living in Utah, is way more negatively impacted being a non-member in a heavily LDS state where things are...
Heavy LDS state. We live in a city that has 2 temples.
Yeah. The only...
Provo has 2 temples as well, but for a long time...
Zip code?
South Jordan was the only place on earth that had 2 Mormon temples, and we live smack dab
right in the middle.
In
our
South
whole
Jordan.
Relationship we have lived here, and so seeing my children, be treated differently at school because of it, being treated differently at the mom groups when I try and go and do play dates, and when I do try and get involved.
You're Mr. Lincoln.
Because I know what they know.
Yeah.
And I know.
So
I know what they know that I know.
You know the conversations that are going on.
And that's one of the bad...
when you're out
It's
of
one
it.
of the unfortunate things that happen because although I at least had parents that didn't shun those that were not Mormons, but I certainly had a number of friends that, you were not able to go play with Zach or Justin.
Yeah, my parents were the same way. My parents didn't shun the non-believers.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But they certainly didn't encourage the relationships with non-members.
Okay, so I'm going to take us back.
No, my parents, because I grew up because we're Californians. And it was, you just played with who you played with.
Yeah.
My parents were never like, well, are they members? That happens here in Utah where they go, well, is he a member? But I never grew up with that, so my parents were never that way. But I definitely see it here with the kids, our kids coming home and talking about it. So now, going back.
So I'm going to take us back because you're talking about what life is like now. But immediately after, where does life take you from leaving the church and then between now?
So I did get pulled back into it a little bit. So I got a job as a flight attendant. No, first off, I got a job as a travel agent. I got my travel degree. So just like a secondary vocational school. But that was right at the time, the old internet Travelocity thing, Expedia, people were starting to do things on their own.
97, 98 was when the internet was. Juno was getting mailed out to everybody for free for 90 hours.
But in 2000, around 2000, that was when I had finished and was entering that into the travel world. Airlines were starting to cut commissions because people were booking on their own. So a lot of the brick and mortar and a lot of the travel agents did not survive that time. So then I got into a different avenue, still in the travel world. So I became a flight attendant with a regional airline and loved it. Was traveling the world, doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. No regrets.
You were living option C.
Yeah. So then I met my first husband, Mike, and his parents were very much in the church. We it's funny because it was kind of like a Mormon relationship, but I wasn't. So to his parents, he still was full on but he wasn't.
But he was a closet.
At all. No, the alcohol was in our closet. So we lived in their house. They lived part of the time in St. George because it was better for his dad. He was I want to get this right, a paraplegic. He had like an accident as soon as he had come home from his mission, was like paralyzed. So he had walked with some braces and stuff. So they spent a lot of the time in St. George. And so we lived in their house in West Valley. We didn't go to church or anything. We definitely weren't living that lifestyle. Mike portrayed that to his parents, but we weren't. So we got married. We had a very short dating engagement, similar to, LDS. And then we got married in St. Thomas on the beach, and were on a cruise, and came home, and surprise, we were pregnant. That was not planned, not part of the deal. But anyway, we were, just rolling with it. I was super excited, probably more so than Mike.
Why? Why were you excited?
Because my whole life, above anything, no matter what career, whatever path I took, I wanted to be a wife and mom, which is kind of funny at 18 that I wasn't like, I'm going to go on that path, of...
That was one of the things that kind of started pushing you another direction outside the church.
Yeah.
And here you are.
I wanted to be a wife and mom. So I was 24, so that's by Utah standards.
You're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're not married within the 18 to 20 years of age, something's wrong with
They're asking you to serve a mission.
Yeah.
Okay, so you come home from your honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
You're living in your in-laws' house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the penthouse suite. High up above the basement.
It wasn't a penthouse.
And you find out you're pregnant.
Yeah. And, everything goes relatively,
You're
on
excited.
schedule.
You're super
I'm
excited.
I'm, over the moon. I'm ready. Everything. This is my first, so I don't know anything different. This is just... So, towards the end of the pregnancy, some complications were discovered just at a normal routine appointment. It kind of caused us to go down a really bad rabbit hole of appointments where I was on bed rest in the hospital for 3 weeks. I was in active labor. I did not know it. They didn't really know at the time what was wrong. They just thought it was something with his heart. Could probably be a whole nother story, but I won't go too far into detail about it. But he ended up only living 4 days. So he was born, he has the coolest birthday, May the 4th. That's how we can always, knowing now, how we end up together and how big a Star Wars
For those
thing.
of you who aren't Star Wars nerds,
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th has become a huge holiday in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
So
he was born May 4th. Emergency C-section that evening. I was in the hospital 4 days, but most of that time I was getting wheeled back and forth to Primary Children's, which is like a world-renowned hospital here in Utah for those with difficult things, cancer and those, really rare for children. So he was there his 4 days of his life, and so that was, I came home, trying to remember. So he passed away on Saturday. That was May 8th. And I was ready to leave the hospital and be done. I was a wreck. I was a mess. I was in a dark place. Wasn't good. And I ended up having an infection I didn't know about because I wasn't seen by a doctor for 4 days. So when they went to release me...
How do you have a baby and then not get seen by a doctor for 4 days?
Because they had lost my chart. So I was at LDS Hospital, downtown Salt Lake, great hospital. That's where I was for 3 weeks until they realized that Carson was going into distress, so they took me by ambulance to the U of U hospital, where I had him because the University of Utah was connected by like a hallway to primary children's. So it was not my first choice to go there. I didn't want to be there. So we get there. That was traumatic that night, but I had him. Then he was gone. Like, I didn't ever hear him cry. I didn't really see him. He was gone. So it was a lot of back and forth to primary over those 4 days until they just realized that there wasn't anything that they could do for him. And I remember they said, which was a trigger for me at the time, they said, if you believe in God, that's the only thing we have left now. Like, that's it. And I was just like, but I don't, in my head.
I don't believe in God,
like,
so what am I left with?
Like,
nothing.
Okay, so, all right. So I went back to my room after he had passed. It was a beautiful moment that we had. I was ready to get the fuck out of the hospital. And they're like, you have an infection. You weren't seen for 4 days. Because for those 4 days, it worked out kind of like beautifully that they didn't see me because they didn't have my chart. They didn't know who, to be tracking me. But I was always over with Carson in primary. Like, that's where I was. I was not in my room. So they said, you're going to have to stay overnight. You have like a fever of 104. You have this raging infection. So the next morning was Mother's Day. And I went home to Mike's house. And Monday I was planning a funeral. And the funeral was Friday. And it was just a blur that whole week. Like, I just remember there was one thing that, again, the things that we, that really were significant were, in that moment. But like, his parents, because Carson was going to be buried in the family plot. So we didn't have to go and buy a burial. He was going to be in the family of Mike's plot. So it was, it was a blessing for us because that's an expense. And I didn't want him in the little baby section of the cemetery. So we planned the funeral, and there was just one thing. They kept wanting to do hymns, and I was just like, that's a trigger for me. But I was just at that point, I was like, fuck everything. I was pissed if there was a God. I think that had I been in the church, that might have broke me. Because you knew what I wanted in my heart my whole life. And you're going to put it in my hands and then rip it away. And you're my dad up in head. Fuck this. I'm pissed. So, I remember being at the funeral on Friday and then going to the wake after. God, I don't even really remember. I'm trying to think, was it at the church? I have blocked out so much. But this one member of his parents' ward came up to me and we were talking, and she said, because she knew the family. And as we're talking, she makes the comment, if you would have been living that righteous life.
The gospel. If you've been living the gospel.
He's in a better place, and you'll be able to be his mom in eternity. And I was like, I want to be his mom fucking now. And I just walked off. I was so pissed. It was like, and I know that people, don't know what to say in those moments, and it's uncomfortable, but they feel like they have to say something. Being a member of that club, I'm just going to put this out there. It doesn't have to be profound. It doesn't have to be a cliche. It doesn't have to be anything. Except, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It does. There's nothing that's going to, make it better or anything. And so, definitely, that didn't. So, that was kind of a big, whoosh back, because from 18 to this point, I mean, even when Mike and I were together, like, we weren't going to church. We were doing our thing. He was, yes, not being honest to his family, but it wasn't really, like, affecting us a whole lot. And after Carson died, I just went dark. Like, that was my faith crisis, life crisis, purpose crisis. I mean, we got divorced shortly after. I think when you go through something like that, you either bond hella close or you just disintegrate. And we just kind of, at that point, he was very, weary of jumping back into that parenthood. And I was like, let's do this. I'm obviously that's not genetic. We had geneticists test Carson and us, and like, it was a fluke, which that's sometimes even harder to hear as a mom, because they're like, you could have breathed the wrong chemical at the wrong time of that body part function being, so you just blame yourself. So I was mad and angry. So that's kind of where I went dark. And that's where really, like, I was for until we met.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Understandably so. I mean, that obviously a dark time. So how do you start coming out of that darkness?
I said baptism for the dead, and it was like a trigger. So, honestly...
So I was thinking about meeting Scott. That's another trigger.
It was a paranormal experience. I'm just going to put it at that. It was a...
But you're going to skip over us meeting and being together
but
dark.
He wants to know. I'm going to lead up to that.
That was a paranormal experience.
We just jumped into, like, all that whole amazingness of us getting together and being on the same page.
Maybe it's more amazing to certain people and not to others.
Well, no. Like, you met me and we were just kind of like...
I was saying it, and
then
now
he
I'm going to beat up.
I didn't skip it. What do you mean I skipped it?
Go up to
I did not skip it. I just said, what takes you out of that darkness? I didn't skip shit.
I didn't, like, it wasn't anything. We were just dark. When we met in 2008, like, you don't realize you are. It's not like something you consciously think about, like,
we were just
really
sleeping. We were just sleeping.
Yeah.
Is the best way to describe it. We were just going through life.
Coasting.
Just going through life. We were together. We were happy. We had a family.
But we did have this strongly in common. Like,
you're both dicks.
We were not, like, as far as...
He just called you a dick. That's twice now. Tonight, the dick has been thrown out inappropriately by these two dicks. What's the one thing we had in common?
Just that we were, like, triggered by the church, like, God or anything like that. So,
he was in a dark place. You're in a dark place, and it just got the chemistry.
Dark sounds so misleading, because we weren't, like, dressing in black and like wearing black eyeliner.
We know what you mean by you were in a dark place, mentally, spiritually.
So talk about your
place.
Spiritually empty. Spiritually empty. Just nothing.
No interest.
No interest. Not gonna.
It is what
and
it
again,
is.
remember, we lived in South Jordan, Utah, where, missionaries would come by, and like we were surrounded by people, and
So you found a partner.
There was literally
in the normal sense, but you also found a partner in the sense that you have someone else who feels the same way as you about religion and spirituality, and it's just you're kind of in the same place as far as that goes.
Like, you're cool. We get it. We're not anymore. All right. So
we had a cool night where we experienced that together, where we both just realized that we were cool.
Yeah.
I was like, wait.
I mean, that's subjective.
You like this music? Wait a minute.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
So, it was... We were both on that same page. It was refreshing in Utah to come from...
Well, we talked about how growing up in that atmosphere, part of the great thing about it was the community feeling. Mm-hmm. And now you're completely outside of that community.
Lost souls
you're alone, but first you're alone outside of that community. And now you've gotten somebody else that helps you create your own little community.
And you got to meet Rick, who was kind of
Which
the
made
same
it
way.
all, that just was
We won't tell that story.
the highlight.
We won't tell that story. But then you met Skip, and then you meet Sean, and you meet all these other people that were Mormon, but they've left.
Not anymore.
They're not going anymore.
They were the tribe. You all became my tribe that I didn't have, and it was just, refreshing. It was just nice to just be able to be yourself, not have to
pretend,
put on airs or anything. Yeah, and also the understanding, I've been hearing the stories from you guys for,
Too long.
12 years.
No, I hear your stories and I'm familiar with them and
You could probably tell them yourself.
But it's actually been really cool to watch these episodes of you guys, especially your individuals, because there have been actual things where I haven't heard. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So, yeah.
Football games and LSD.
Again, too.
Okay, so you guys are married now, and you found your tribe, like you said. So now, what happens as far as your spirituality? Where does it go?
All right, so we have our son Stone in October 15th, 2010. And we're in the hospital in Murray. He is born with a blood sugar issue because I am gestational diabetic, which means I am diabetic when I'm pregnant, which means you can have big babies.
Which means you're kicking out extra insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was a gestational diabetic baby, and I was 11 pounds, 2 ounces.
Her.
So my grandpa was 13. My nephew was 11.7. My sister that had her first at 18, 11.7. My sister was 11.2, exactly the same as me. So we have big babies, and I knew that going ahead, and into the pregnancy and everything. So, but after he was born, he was taken to the NICU just to regulate his blood sugar, because basically he had been hooked to a sugar factory for 9 months.
He was producing too much insulin.
Yeah.
Because you were eating stuff and it was being produced too much sugar?
But no, because that
or is it the other way around?
I think it was the other way around.
Too much insulin, he was producing too much sugar?
I don't know. I'm not going to try to say that I know what it was. All I know is his blood sugar was too low.
Yeah.
And they were trying to regulate it. And we began our 12-day stay in Murray. And
great hospital.
Are you staying at the hospital?
So I had a C-section with him. After 4 days, because that's how long I was in there for, and then they would release me, they said, oh, you can just kind of check back into your hospital room.
For $30 a night.
Mm-hmm.
You can stay here for $30 a night. You still get access to the Lorna Doone closet and the Jell-O cups and stuff, but you have to get it yourself. And we were
You don't have a nurse or
that's
anything.
cool. So we stayed for those 12 days.
Because of what he was in the NICU for it was dependent on, his poor little feet. So they would prick his heel to take his blood. I mean, if you have a son who's diabetic, it was just terrible. And they would
every 3 hours.
Every 3 hours after he ate. And, every 3 hours I was down there, and it was based on me feeding him and what his levels were.
His blood sugar had to be consistently above 70. 70 for 3 days in a row. Consistently.
Before they would
every time they checked.
12 days of this, y'all. 12 days. And I'm not kidding. I didn't leave the hospital once. It was every 3 hours. For 12 days. So we were in upstairs in great hospital, and we would go downstairs to the basement level where the NICU was. And every time we would go down there and scrub in and do all this special stuff to go into the NICU, the nurses, we got really friendly with a lot of them. And they'd say, we have a room down here. Come stay down here. And we're like, it's okay, like, we're fine up there.
Well, we would have one nurse that would come in for the afternoon shift and go, why aren't you guys staying in the room for free downstairs? I'm putting you on the list. And then
Every day
the day shift would come in the following morning, and we'd be like, hey, we heard about this room downstairs. Can we get that? And she'd be like, that's for people that are having like serious issues with their babies. That room is reserved. And we'd be like, oh, that's totally cool. But nurse afternoon keeps telling us to ask about it. So one of the nights, she's just like, I've got you in that room. It's done. I've taken care of it. You're not paying for a room up here tonight. You're going to stay down there tonight for free. And we're like,
cool.
Okay. So we go down there, and it was a lot like this.
Oh, gosh, you guys, it was
cinder blocks, a room that looked out into an empty courtyard, and just this cold, dark
Do you remember
bathroom.
the bathroom?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just this bathroom that was just like, we didn't know anything about energy. We were non-believer. We thought life was life. It's and then you die. That's what life was. Life, well, you said it earlier tonight while we were eating wings. You're like, life is a bitch.
That is a bitch.
And then you die. That was our philosophy.
And that was
like,
it. That was where we were at. So we're in this room, and we're just like thinking nothing of it. But the next morning we woke up, and both of us were like, let's get the fuck out of this room.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep good last night. Let's go back up to our Lorna Doone room where we're up on that floor. Oh. Yeah, and we never stayed a night in that room again.
The $30 a night.
However,
so
it only took that one night.
So now things work out. Stone gets better.
Stone's fine. Stone's totally fine. He was fine the whole time.
Yeah, he was actually like the bruiser of the NICU because most of those little babies, Jaden was in there for a long time. Your son.
3, and he was 11 plus. Or 9 plus?
He was
Stone
9'2".
was 9'2".
So the nurses loved Stone because they could actually hold him without like.
He was a big baby.
Yeah, he was the bruiser of the NICU. So, okay, back up a little bit. Scott and I, shortly after we met, we moved in together into a brand new townhome in South Jordan. We were the first to live, end unit, right by the clubhouse, the pool. And early on, living there, we started kind of recognizing little shenanigans, paranormal thing, unexplainable, that we would explain off. Like, for example, our garage door, well, we lived in a row of townhomes, so you can see we would just easily write it off, but our garage door would just randomly open or close.
We didn't just write it off because I would walk around the neighborhood clicking our garage door would go up.
We wrote it off of like as a ghost.
No, we joked about it and said we named it Spencer.
Oh.
We were like, okay, we must have something here with us. And I said, I've lived in apartments before that I had things happening. I believe that there may be that energy, possibly, I don't know. But we just were like, okay, we're going to name it Spencer. Because it was little things. It was like light switches going on. The Christmas tree lights would turn on in the middle of the night. We would unplug them. And we'd come downstairs and they'd be plugged in. And we'd be like, okay, how the fuck do you explain that? The garage door's going up. You'd be upstairs and you'd hear the pots moving downstairs. Could it be gravity? Sure. But we just called it Spencer. We're like, it's just Spencer. And we're like...
Never felt... anything negative.
There was one time when a burner was on. We had a flame burner.
Yeah, we're like,
and I remember going, hey, listen, dude.
You can be here.
This shit's not fucking cool. None of this. So we lived in this place that we were kind of like starting to open up to the possibility that maybe there's some energy here without even really understanding what energy is.
So now, fast forward, we come home from the hospital. So now that was like the end of October. It's now November-ish, December. Things in the house start to get a little bit more intense. Like it doesn't just feel like, okay, Spencer.
Like there's clearly a different.
You'd be sitting watching TV, and there were these stairs that went upstairs. So you'd face the stairwells that would go up, and you'd be sitting there watching TV, and you would just see this shadow move down the stairs into the corner of the landing of the stairs. And you'd go, I remember we'd be sitting there watching TV and go, did you just see that?
Now, you would see it more because we would split shifts, and I would go to bed more on the earlier, like 8, 9 o'clock.
You go to bed at 8, and I would stay up until like 3, and then, or like 2:30.
Like 2, yeah.
And then you'd come downstairs, take Stone, and I'd go to sleep till like 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Alternate.
And that's what we did. But we would see it. It was even so distinctive that Taylor's friends would spend the night.
Sleepovers.
And they would call it out. You would literally see, and we would go out, and there was no cars. There was nothing that was causing...
You would try to debunk it.
Yeah. And then there was liquid dripping off the mirror one night. And we go to the kids. We're in Stone and Tori's bedroom. And we had these mirrors that went all the way to the 10-foot high ceilings. These closet door mirrors. And at the very top, there was this liquid dripping down. And we're like, we've only been home for a couple of weeks. We cleaned this house top to bottom. My parents stayed in that room when we left. We would have seen liquid dropping from the top. And we're like, who did this? And so we're like, Taylor, Tori, come in here. And we're like, Taylor, do you know who did that? He's like, I have no clue. And we're like, Tori, do you know who did that? And she would go, who? And we're like, do you know who put that liquid at the top of the mirrors? And she goes, who? And we're like, okay, it wasn't her. You know, I remember going, okay, it wasn't Tori. So we're like, what the fuck? Like, why is there liquid dripping from the top of these mirrors? Little things like that.
So, okay, for me personally, like, I would wake up to the bed shaking. And I'd be in the bed alone. And I'm like, what the hell? And as you're coming out of, like, that conscious level of sleep, and I'm going, gosh, my breathing is shaking this bed, until I realize that's not humanly, physically possible.
But you would just feel the bed shaking.
And I was like, what the hell? Okay, that's weird. And also, outside of our door, there was like a faulty board or something, because it would creak loud.
Every time you walked into the bedroom,
Into the master
you hit
bedroom.
the creak. You hit it every single time.
And one night, I heard it. I thought
Multiple times.
Yeah, I
you
was
heard
like,
it multiple
why?
times.
I thought you were standing outside of the door, and like you were either trying to get my attention or like you didn't want to come in.
Well,
so
you said to me the next morning.
I was like, why didn't you just come in last night? Like, what were you doing? Dancing? Like, it was like legit. And he's like, I didn't go upstairs at all.
I didn't come upstairs one time last night. And she's like, I heard you in the doorway stepping on the creek. And I was like, I didn't come upstairs once. I had everything I needed down here with Stone. So now
this
jump
is all
forward.
Coming to a head.
Now
and so
jump
it's
forward
like,
to Christmas time. Right after Christmas time, Taylor gets the iHome with his iPod. And in the middle of the night, one of the nights,
the first night
after Christmas, I'm downstairs with Stone, and the Imperial March by Darth Vader. Oh, was it the Resistance? Mm-hmm. So it was the Resistance by Muse. So that starts playing.
At 3 in the morning.
And I'm holding Stone, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So I go running upstairs, holding Stone, and I go in, I grab Taylor's iPod, and I stop it. The next morning, I'm like, dude, you need to turn the alarm off on your phone. He said, I don't have an alarm on my phone.
It's
I'm
an
like,
iPod.
Okay, it's a new iPod. I'm sure maybe it's just a quirk. iHome. So we're playing with it, and there's no alarm set for any time. So that night, the next night, I'm downstairs and I'm holding Stone right around the same time, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and now it's the Imperial March by Darth, and I go running upstairs and I turn it off and I go downstairs. The next morning, I'm like, seriously, dude, what the fuck? You've got to turn your alarm off. He's like, Dad, there's no alarm on my phone set. So the third night, nothing. And I'm like,
Sweet
okay.
silence.
So I'm driving to work the next day, and I say to Taylor...
You call him.
I called him on my way to work. He's home for Christmas break. And I said, hey... Good job on not having the alarm go off last night. And he goes, no, Dad, it was awful. And I go, what do you mean? He said, I woke up in the middle of the night and Jax was our dog, sitting on the edge of the bed.
Time out. He's on a top bunk. There is no lower bunk. It's just, so he's on a top bunk bed.
in a room by himself. The dog is staring at the center of the floor, growling, and he said my bed was shaking. I was like, what did you do? I'm like, what did you do?
He's like, why didn't you call
I'm
out?
like, why didn't you call and get me? He's like, I couldn't speak. He said I was terrified. He's like, I just grabbed Jax and we just like pulled ourselves under the cover and went to sleep. And I'm like,
all right.
Okay, liquid dripping
Time
from
out.
mirrors, creaks, bed shaking.
I've seen this
music
movie
going off.
before in
The
the
dog
80s.
would just sit. Do you remember Jax staring? We're like, Jax, what are you staring at? Why are you growling? He's probably staring at some ghost up there. And we're joking about it as this is going on. And now this is going on.
Yeah.
So I go into work and I get on Facebook and I go, does anybody know anything about getting rid of a poltergeist?
Yeah.
Click.
That
Post.
was the word you used. I think it's so
Yeah.
funny because you're like,
I didn't know what else to call
yeah.
it. And the first person to respond was my cousin. And she said, have you tried a priesthood blessing? I was like, I don't have that power anymore. It's just not there. I'm like, no, I haven't. That's not
I'm not going to.
Nope. And then a little bit later on in the day, the family from Australia, who I was really close to, I talked about in my episode, one of the daughters said, have you talked to Mum? And I was like, no, I haven't talked to Leonie. Why? And she said, she helps people clear energy. And I went, okay, and what the fuck does that mean?
I think it said it was like clear that out or
She said clear energy. And I said,
Yeah.
I don't understand what that means. Okay. So I went home that night and I sit down with Jen and she's sitting in the family room of the house, of the townhome that we're in. And she's holding stone.
So we have a sectional and we have like the arm rests are very similar to like this edge of this bar where it's very flat and wide. In fact, we can even take a picture and put that in there because we use it as our basement couch.
This is the arm right here. You can see it's very square. It's not slanted.
Don't make it any more difficult.
So Scott
that's what
comes
you're saying.
home.
I'm saying it's not sloped. It's just a very square edge. We still have this sectional.
So Scott comes home from work and he's telling me about this, and I've got that armrest to my back and I'm leaning just kind of like this and I'm feeding Stone and his little boppy and I'm just leaning and I'm like, like, what do we do?
And I'd set my phone right on the sectional, right in the middle of that armrest on the sectional.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I really feel like there's something here and I don't know what I'm even saying. But it feels like there's like a ghost here or something. And Jen you were like, yeah, I feel it too. I was like, it just feels like it's getting, like we used to joke about Spencer, but this doesn't feel like that.
Anymore.
Like this feels like it's really aggressive.
Oh,
So
yeah, because we started talking about thoughts we were having, and we were having the same weird, random, dark, negative thoughts, and we were being influenced.
So I say,
Yeah.
I talked to Becky Chappell on Facebook, and she said that her mom does energy clearing, and she could like help us clear the energy out in her house. And as I'm saying this, my phone that's sitting right in the middle of the sectional jumps into the center of the living room floor. Like, not like fell.
Wasn't a smooth.
Didn't
it was
slide.
Like a jerky.
It was like a jerky, like pop, pop, and jumped into the center of the floor. And we both just sat and looked at it, and we looked at each other, and we're like what?
You certainly don't see that every day.
Like-
Goosebumps, chills. I just remember going.
That
What
wasn't
the
my
hell?
thought. My thought was,
Oh yeah, this son of a bitch right here decides to go and call it out.
I picked up my phone off the ground and went, okay, you got our attention. We know you're here. Do it again. I put my phone back in the same place that it was on the sectional.
Actually, a little bit further back because you're like, I want to make sure that
That's
I'm
not
being
just gonna
intentional.
slide off.
So we now are having this conversation. We're continue talking.
No, we looked at it for a couple of minutes. We all sat there for a good
a couple minutes
Yeah.
and stared at it and then started talking again.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes, goes flying into the center of the floor. And then we went, ooh, shit.
So I'll be
Don't
honest.
do
I'm
that
living
again.
I'm living in North Carolina during all of this, right?
Yeah.
And so he's telling me all this stuff going on, and I was passing it off as, all right, there's something electrical going on with the stove, or
Yeah.
there's, I was excusing it as other things. The Stone or the Taylor story.
The music.
The music.
With the dog and his bed shaking and everything.
Yeah.
And then this is where I was like, those two things were where I was like, all right, I can't really explain those off as
We couldn't either. And
anything.
on my life, that phone flew
Jumped.
through. And I was like, okay. Like, all right. Yeah,
This is
you
a
have
little
our
more than
attention.
what
Like,
we-
this is right. This is intense.
bite off.
I just remember
So-
thinking,
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What
It's-
do you want?
like, what does that mean that it did it 2 times as we're talking about clearing the energy, not understand, like, we didn't understand what that meant. What we
Wait,
know about...
but I never thought this until right this second.
Mm.
It knocked your phone off. It probably didn't have enough energy for the laptop, but your phone, as you're talking about communicating with Leonie and knowing that energy knew that she would be able to clear it out, as it was like trying to break it.
I don't know. All I know is it happened and it scared the shit out of us.
I mean, who
So,
knows, right? But
yeah.
when I heard the story, the way I would look at it is that it was just mad. You're talking about getting
Clearing
rid of
it
it.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Fuck
I've always
you.
thought was like, no. Like, it was
With
like...
the device,
just
though, that
showing
it
its
probably
anger.
thinks how you're going to
and I
communicate,
get that.
though.
And I can see that. So,
Crazy.
that night...
So we get on. You get on.
We're sitting, it's late at night, it's Christmas holiday, Taylor's home, he's downstairs with us, it's the 3 of us sitting on the sofa, we're watching the Kennedy Honors, Paul McCartney's being inducted, it's like December 27th, 2010, and all of a sudden, at like 11 o'clock at night, Leonie pops up on my laptop. This is before we were communicating on the phone with Facebook Messenger. You had to be on Facebook. And she pops up and she's like, hey, are you available? And we're just like, yes, what? Hey, well, I mean, like, we don't even know. Here's what's happened. Kind of told her, recap what was going on. And she goes, okay,
So I'm going to
give me your address. And I will...
With your permission.
With your permission, I can come to your house and I can check it out. And I just sat there and just looked at the screen and went, what does... She's not...
She's in Australia.
She lives in Melbourne, Australia.
So you tell
That's a
me.
$1,500 plane ticket.
Yeah. I was
We're
like,
talking
what do you know
at
over
most 3 days before she could be here. And she's like, is that okay if I come? I was like, and I wrote, wait, you're going to come to Utah? And she writes back,
Oh, you.
no, you unawoke, unaware person, soul. She's like, no, I'll come energetically and I can look and see. And I just remember going,
Your
like,
bullshit meter was
I was
already...
like, Jen, do you care if she comes to our house energetically? And you're like, whatever the fuck she needs to do, have her do it. So I'm like, go right ahead. We'd be happy to have
Here's
you.
our address.
You know, no Tim Tams, unfortunately, but come on out. She's like, okay, give me about 15 minutes. And we're like, okay. So we sat there for about 15 minutes watching the Kennedy Honors. And she comes back and she goes, okay, wow. You have
We have a
definitely...
full house.
I think that's exactly what she said. You have a full house. And we went, okay. Like, we have 3 kids now. That's not that full in Mormon
It was
standards.
like 11.
She
something
goes,
like that.
she goes, there's multiple energies in your home. Like,
You've had some for a while.
some have been there for a while. They mean no ill intention. but you've gone somewhere and you've stayed somewhere and you've picked up this energy and it's come home with you and it's influencing your thoughts and it's getting stronger. And we won't go into detail about that, but I can 100% confirm that that is the truth.
But what was your first thought when
my
she said
bullshit
that?
meter went, fuck off. We haven't been, she goes, you've stayed somewhere in the last couple of months. And I go, we haven't been anywhere together. Like, I went to Phoenix in December by myself at the beginning of the month. That was like the first trip I took with John Bro out on the road. That was the first time I traveled. I'm like, I went to Phoenix by myself in December. You weren't with me. We haven't been anywhere.
Because we had Stone.
And I'm like, Leonie, I'm like, that's not true. We haven't gone anywhere. I'm like, 2 months ago, December 27th, we came home with Stone on October 27th. I go, we were in the hospital with Stone in the NICU for 12 days. And she goes,
bingo.
That's it. That's
it's like
where
Grand
you were.
Central Station for energies, because people that die suddenly.
You've got both ends of the spectrum.
Birth,
the spiritual
death,
aspect
tragic
from a new life, and then the spiritual aspect of a dying life.
And I just remember being like, that sounds so weird. But okay, like, I guess I can get that. And I just wasn't on the level that I'm on today to be able to go,
to accept
that's 100%. Like, if I wanted to go somewhere to connect with energy that's coming and going.
Because it's the conditioning that you've had that doesn't allow you to consider anything else.
I'd always been taught, it just seemed so unfamiliar. And my subconscious mind was going, this is bullshit, this is bullshit, this is bullshit. If you don't recognize it, it's bullshit. And so
it wasn't until years later that we actually were driving
and we realized,
having this conversation, and we both go,
I know exactly where that energy hooked up with us
room.
The night that we stayed in that one room downstairs in the NICU with these families who are going through the loss. The room is reserved for people because they told us this multiple times that you might be. They'd be like, you might be yanked out in the middle of the night because your child's not dying. There might be a family that comes in that needs that room. Like, one of the bitch nurses said that to us. She's like, there might be a family that comes into the room that needs that room more than you. So you just be prepared that you might be ripped out. We're like, we don't even really want the room.
You don't have a serious case.
You just keep pushing. Okay. One of the nurses keeps pushing us. So we realized
it was in that room.
It was that room that we felt that low vibration without knowing to call it the low vibration of fear and anxiety and sadness and depression and loss and all of the connected energy to what that room represents. 100%, that's where we connected with that energy.
So you have this realization.
So she goes, let me
clear it out.
Let me clear it out. And we go, okay. She goes, open the windows, open the doors. It's like almost midnight now.
It's
in the middle of winter. We open all the windows.
It's totally calm outside. It's cold. But we open the doors, we open the windows. But yeah, it was completely still.
And in my mind at the time, I'm going, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? And we did it. And then we all three went and sat down on the sofa downstairs. Tori wasn't with us that week. Mm-hmm. We just had Stone. Stone was asleep, or maybe you were holding him. And so we're sitting there on the couch, and all of a sudden, the three of us just go,
No. Back up. Before that. Because we're sitting there on the couch, and I shit you not, like that scene in Mary Poppins where like that gust of wind comes through. Yeah, it was that. Like swirling leaves and wind. Like
the whole house was blowing.
Our garage door, big garage door, which was open, to the man door through the garage to our home, to the front door was all like in perfect alignment, and it was like this whipping wind like through this one path
alleyway
in our house.
And it's
like a channel of wind.
It was intense, and then as soon as it came, it was done.
Dead, silent, quiet. Like, and we all just went, now.
And we looked at each other and
We could
we
breathe.
went, it's gone.
It's gone.
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
Like,
It's our house again.
it feels like our place. It feels like our space. It feels like this brick backpack that we've been carrying around. We just taken off and we're like, it's gone. And that for us was that welcome to spirituality.
Guess what? You're now awakened, woke up. Guess
but
what?
we weren't.
Like,
It was the beginning.
Yeah.
That was in 2010. It's
That
2020. So it'll be 10 years this December that happened.
But this was definitely a catalyst.
This was hey,
push you in that direction.
There's something else out there. There's energy out there. It responded to a command that you gave it. It followed your direction. Wake up.
It was the thing that made you kind of realize that, okay, there's something else there.
yeah, because we didn't know what that was, because for us, anything spiritual or religion anything in that realm of spirituality was what we went off and what we were programmed with and what we grew up knowing. So it was a trigger. So when we, we're like, we obviously was that went to the devil? Was that like,
when you're actually
adversary.
experiencing the things that they tell you, is taboo, now you're seeing it firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just had to really face that and go,
what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Okay, so
we had to reinvent everything.
So what does that do to your spirituality? Like, is there a...
That was it. That was the catalyst, because that then... And it wasn't anything like we're like, we need to find God or Jesus or whatever. It was just like, okay, I don't know what this means. At least for me, that's kind of what I was like. Okay, we've just said no to everything.
We unlearned what we had learned.
Uh-huh.
And now we were going, okay, clean slate. Let's look at this. I cannot deny that happened.
But we know what we don't want. So what is it that we do want, and what does that look like? So it really wasn't for a couple of years 3 years was that? So I was at the library just checking out some books with the kids.
2 years. It was 2 years. It was like this November of 2012 was when you brought the book home. So that was 2010. So 2 years later, and we went through a hellish 2 years during that time.
Yeah.
And you, in this weird place, checks out this book from the library and bring it home.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again,
And why did you check the book out?
I don't know. On my life, I just remember going through the New Age. I've always been drawn to
spirituality,
mystical, gypsies, and the astrology and horoscopes, and I've always been.
You're not a witch, are you?
I've always been fascinated by that stuff, and so I was just kind of perusing that section because it's the New Age, the back in the library.
You're thinking spirituality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We've seen some shit. We've been together. It's 2 years later, and you check out this book.
I come across Michael Loget's The Law of Attraction, more about
the science of
attracting more of what you want
and less of what you don't.
I'll put a little picture up there. So I go to bed that night reading it, and I go to sleep, and it literally rolls and falls into your lap. Yeah. And it's a very short read. Highly recommend it. We've recommended it to so many people. It's a great starter book for just the learning about energy, the law of attraction, the power of our thoughts, all of that. So dropped it in Scott's lap. In fact, true story, I didn't even finish it that time that we...
You didn't finish it for years.
No.
But I picked it up.
But I feel like I was the vessel that was giving it to you first, because really, Scott, with his coaching clients early on with Universal, you start incorporating, that's kind of along, I think, did you get into that on your episode? Oh, but...
it's about the law of attraction. It's about the the early stages of realizing that everything is energy. Energy is a vibration. Vibrations are controlled by emotions, and emotions are stemmed from our thoughts that we have. And so I read it and decided in the end of that year, 2012, beginning of 2013, I was going to go, okay, let's just see if I do what this book says, will it work?
I think you were more like, I'm going to prove this wrong.
No, I was like, if it's wrong, I'll prove it wrong, but I have no reason to say if this is going to work, let's see if it can work. And I did it. And went to work and started telling you about it. Started telling my associates, my coworkers. 2013 was an amazing year. Halfway 2014, you go, okay, this has been working.
I really
for
wanted
you for
him
about,
to pave the way.
This has been working for you for about a year and a
works.
half. I can't deny it.
No, do you know really what I was thinking? True story. I really was like, we'll see how long this lasts. Because I'm like, I'm not going to invest in this, on this path, whatever you're on, even though I checked out the book, ironically. But, like, I was like, we'll see, like, I'm going to see if I don't want to invest my time if in a month you're going to be whatever.
But I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Was 2013 an amazing year for you?
Well, yeah, because I was riding on those little coattails.
And where did we went to Hawaii for free.
Yeah.
We went to New York for free. We saw One Republic on the Hudson River.
Yep.
Were you doing at the time the what do they call it? Posters.
Vision boards?
Vision boards.
Fuck yeah, I had the most amazing vision board. 2011 we made a vision board together. 2013's vision board was check, 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 front row at Pearl Jam, check, you know, like all these things. And by 2014, you went, okay, what is this about?
And honestly, like, so I was still just, I think, reeling from everything with Carson. I was still reeling with everything we had gone through with Tori, and that's a whole way other story. But just like, there was a lot, we just had a lot of roadblocks and stumbles. We were unaware. We were using the law of attraction the wrong way. Subconsciously. By
like
just
most people do.
being negative and complaining and, you know, focusing on what we don't want and putting the wrong energy into things.
We had a viewer that commented in one of the videos where I talked about the law of attraction. They said, be careful because that's another prosperity doctrine. And what I teach people about is, hey, look out. The law of attraction is working. If you're focused on negative and fear and worry, you're attracting those situations. So just as much as it's a law of prosperity, it's also a law of wake the fuck up. You are the one that is steering the ship with the thoughts that you have. So we shifted and went to a place of going, okay, let's learn more about this, which then just propelled us even to a deeper level of searching for spirituality that, like you said, believe nothing, but consider everything.
But I'm way more spiritual than I ever was religious. Full on.
Tuned into energy, tuned into you, tuned into what's going on around you.
I have like a major, strong, solid testimony of what I believe now than when I was a full-on Mormon. 100%.
It's interesting because
now you're starting to also see these experiences play out and you're in control.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, well, I mean, if it's God's will, you know, it may happen, but, you know, it's got to be God's will. But now you're seeing the creation.
It's my will.
It's your
right.
will, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because we've all talked, and I don't think this is going to be the case for everyone, but we've all talked about in our episodes about that exact thing, is that we all feel like we're more spiritual now than we ever were.
And do you know why? Like, it's because we have to do it because there is no accountability. There is no one, there's no rules, there's no...
we've talked about this. So it's because we get to choose.
Yeah.
We get to choose what to
focus on.
Focus
how we
on
act.
what we believe and what we think. It's not just stuff that we've been trained to think and believe.
And when you're
based
aware,
on
when
what
you're
we've
aware,
been.
when you're aware now that, as you said, we're in control. When you're aware, that's empowering. And now it's.
You're not a victim.
But now you're manifesting things. You're starting to see things start to pop up in your life.
And I'll be honest, it's
the tangible stuff.
I feel like I eliminated the middleman who decides if I'm worthy enough to
deserve.
Manifest
if you're in
if I'm
good
worthy.
graces,
Yeah.
then you'll get that. If
Okay.
you're being obedient, you'll get that.
So we go from this place of like not believing anything to like really being aware of thoughts. It's 2016. It's the fall of 2016. Your mom comes and visits our house with a couple of ladies from her
For a
ward.
genealogy
They're going to Scotland and Ireland for a genealogy conference. So these four, what did Stone call them?
The old lady attack.
Stone called it the old lady attack. We had these four old ladies come stay at our house. So one of the mornings...
They were coming from California to meet in Salt
They had a couple
Lake
of
to
days
go
before their
international.
connecting
Yeah.
flight. So they're there for 2 days.
So I'm in the music room in this house, which is kind of
Music
like...
room.
I miss the music room.
Me too.
So we were in the music room just kind of hanging out. My mom was in the kitchen with the ladies. And I'm just playing with the kids, and I can overhear, what they're saying and stuff. And they were on the subject of, I guess, our status within the church. And my mom was just saying that...
They said, are they members?
Oh, yeah, are they members? And my mom said, yes, but they're not active.
And I remember you coming to me and going like, do you want to know what my mother said to those old lady attacks? And I said, what? And you told me that, and
we're like,
totally she's right. She's 100% right. We are still considered members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We don't believe it. We don't practice it. We really have some serious concerns with it. And we're being counted as members. And this was after 2015, after the November 2015 policy that we were both really shook by.
That was tough. That was
and
hard.
We both were like, we don't want that anymore. Like, she's totally right.
Yeah.
So what sparked you for getting your name and my name taken off the records of the church was your mom saying that we were members of the church.
Twofold. It was the whole where they came out and said that babies couldn't be blessed of those of a homosexual couple. That babies couldn't.
It was
be
a
blessed.
policy that came out in the bishop's handbook. It kind of got leaked out, and it just stated that from there on out, November of 2015, children who were born in a homosexual or a lesbian relationship, gay lesbian relationship, they wouldn't be allowed to be giving a blessing when they were born. And just hearing
that went against my soul because I'm
it wasn't just the blessing, it was also baptism.
Oh, there was other things too. There was baptisms that wouldn't happen as well.
And you can be baptized when you're 18, but you've got to like completely
renounce your family.
Yeah.
You have to admit that your parents are living in sin. And that was awful, and the not being baptized was awful, but to me, and I know that you were on the same page of just going, they're not going to allow a baby to receive a blessing. There is a literal scripture that says, suffer the little children to come unto me. And that just rocked us.
Well, and that was the catalyst of really you completely cutting that, drawing the line. That was it. It was drawing the line in the sand with your family. Yeah. That was it.
And
it was just going,
we all know how that worked out.
This is where I stand.
If you don't,
this is where you stand.
Episode 2.
So, yeah, it was that. And then the realization that my mom's right. Like, our numbers are contributing to that.
This organization.
They're counting us to be able to go.
We're 16 million strong.
So,
nope.
So you have that realization, say we don't want to contribute to that. We're going to have our names taken off the records. We're no longer members.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what? Like from there to now, like how does that manifest into what life is like now?
So it was really crazy because I want to bring this up because like I did not expect to feel anything or really be bothered by the whole. I mean, it was a formality for me to put my name and remove it from the records. That was it. I had been away from it for so long, it wasn't bothering me. But I remember we were at the Harmon's post office
In
South Jordan.
No, it was that we were living in West Jordan, so it was back behind the West Jordan Airport.
Oh, that's right.
Airport
That's
number
right.
2, that Harmon's out there.
Yes, on 62. Yep. So we were there. And we had done all our paperwork, and we were all excited. We were taking pictures.
It was official.
And we were doing
dropping the mail.
That you could no longer use our number and use us as numbers. So I remember opening and putting that in there, and again, on my life, feeling this electric, this energy, this cord just being cut, and I just go, I did not expect that. Like, I know you had a different reaction.
Oh, I was the condition born in the church. Leading up to it, I was going, shit, eternity, shit. Even though I'd been living away from the church, living outside of the church, I still had that feeling until
you let go, and that was it.
Elsa. And
so
I did.
You guys still have yours on?
What?
In the church records.
Yeah.
Your names. And do you have any intent, have you thought about it, or just...
I mean, I've certainly given thought about it, but I guess it hasn't really played that much of a...
Yeah.
I haven't given that much thought, but I think eventually, yeah, without question.
Yeah.
Just because, as you said, to be counted as still part of it, I've certainly graduated past that to where I don't...
I know
I
a
don't
lot
have
of
a feeling.
families that so there's a lot of members, and put it in the comments. I'm curious, because this has been things that I've heard. I mean, I haven't been a member since I was,
18.
going active, 18. So I've heard that for those that are Jack Mormons, there's a lot of different names and stuff, but people that are active but don't necessarily believe, but they go to appease family members or whatever, to be social, to have the community, because they've been threatened that if they take their names off, they'll be removed out of wills and stuff.
Well, certainly.
Is that
it's
a thing?
It's
definitely. Look, I had roommates that were promised Ducatis to go on missions.
No shit.
So you get promised a Ducati to go on a mission, you get threatened to be taken out of the will for leaving the church.
Wow.
I mean, if you can offer your
Talk
child...
about conditional love.
Take that money.
I didn't see it as conditional love. Well, I guess it is, kind of.
Take the money and stick it
if you do
way up your ass, Morty.
If you do what we want you to do, what we expect of you, then we'll reward you. If you don't do what we want you to do and expect you to do, then we'll...
If anybody's watching this and thinks that that's cool, message us. Let's talk about that, because that's just fucked up. That's just fucked up.
And to be fair, they're doing it because that was the conditioning that our parents had.
Doesn't make it right.
I agree.
Doesn't make it right. And if you're doing that, and if you're holding that over somebody's head for a fake, bullshit, bogus number, yeah.
But again, it's going back to what we've talked about many times, just that deep-rooted brainwashing, conditioning, whatever you want to call it.
Do you think it's almost like I'm going to fear them into it, so whatever means necessary?
Well, of course, because fear is a powerful emotion.
Yeah.
Well,
I just wonder,
religion
when
is
you're
very
talking
fear-based.
when you're talking about wanting your family to be together forever in heaven, some people will obviously do whatever it takes to get you there.
But this
even
is
if
the
it
thing.
means bribing you.
This is the thing that drives me crazy, is that I know, and I don't know about other religions, so I can only speak about the religion that I grew up with. But your mom isn't worried about it, because she just believes that everything will just work out in the end. Because Eric, your brother, is not a member or active. Sherry is not a member or active. Mm-hmm. You're not a member or active. But Connie still thinks that y'all are going to be chilling out with Tom in the celestial kingdom. That's her faith. That even though the program's not being worked the way that the doctrine dictates that it's being worked, it's still going to work out.
Well, it's that ignorance is bliss. It's that hope. It's what she got into LDS in the beginning is that dream of having your family together forever. And
that's a powerful hook.
It is
That's what we went out and knocked on doors, and when we would talk to people,
getting the wife is like strategy number.
Right. We're out tracting during the day. Moms are home as missionaries. We're talking to the wives going, hey, do you want to hear about God's plan for you to live forever as a family? Because what are people afraid of? Losing family. Death. People are afraid of death. Here is the strategy to cheat death.
Well, you can have that, but it's conditional.
Well, it's going to cost you 10% of your income from here on out.
A lot more than that.
And just all of your Sundays and Tuesdays
Mondays, Tuesday night.
God forbid you get called to be the seminary teacher in California, and then you're up at 4 a.m. teaching a bunch of dickhead kids that don't want to listen.
We've had this conversation recently because we're curious for the numbers of members now, what I'm going to open up to you guys, because since COVID and that shit got shut down at first... Like, I mean, it's crazy. You guys have mentioned this in your other episodes. When I was growing up, I don't remember any real big, like, announcements from the top. Shit was pretty much, like, worked out. There wasn't a lot of drama in the church, at least that I don't remember.
It was...
No, you were, the big announcements
were the temples that they were that they were opening up.
General conference was positive. I mean, they show you everything.
Unless you masturbated, then it wasn't.
I remember one of the biggest revelations.
You said masturbation first. You were talking to Jen about masturbation when she was talking earlier.
I brought it up once.
Don't blame me
bring
for
it up every episode.
Dropping the masturbation card. But if you were jerking off and went to conference, you felt guilty.
Well,
I don't know what that felt like, huh?
Some of you did.
You were just banging assistant managers.
There was certain...
You didn't have to worry about masturbation.
No, but I remember one of the biggest revelations that was given, while I was still in it, was when they were talking about how the members were now going to open up you pay tithing, you pay fast offerings, and now you're going to pay into the, what was the missionary fund or whatever that allowed other poor, countries to...
Was this a new thing?
Yep. I mean, this is going back 20...
Okay, see, I probably don't remember.
20 plus years ago.
Yeah, you wouldn't have remembered.
But again, I just remember that.
Sean's just trying to get out of the masturbation talk. That's okay.
But since we've been together, and I would say not even our whole... Well, maybe it has been, because Prop 8?
Proposition 8, known informally as Prop 8, was a California ballot proposition and a state constitutional amendment passed in the November 2008 California state elections. The proposition was created by opponents of same-sex marriage in advance of the California Supreme Court's May 2008 appeal ruling in remarriage cases, which followed the short-lived 2004 same-sex weddings controversy and found the previous ban on same-sex marriage, Proposition 22 from 2000, unconstitutional. Proposition 8 was ultimately ruled unconstitutional by a federal court in 2010, although the court decision did not go into effect until June 26th of 2013, following the conclusion of proponents' appeals. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints publicly supported the proposition. The First Presidency of the Church announced its support for Proposition 8 in a letter intended to be read in every congregation in California. In this letter, church members were encouraged to do all you can to support the proposed constitutional amendment by donating of your means and time. The response of church members to their leadership's appeals to donate money and volunteer time was very supportive, such that Latter-day Saints provided a significant source for financial donations in support of the proposition, both inside and outside the state of California. LDS members contributed over $20 million, about 45% of out-of-state contributions to ProtectMarriage.com came from Utah, over 3 times more than any other state. Protect Marriage, the official proponent of Proposition 8, estimates that about half the donations they received came from Mormon sources, and that LDS church members made up somewhere between 80% and 90% of the volunteers for early door-to-door canvassing. Eventually, the California Fair Political Practices Commission fined the LDS Church in 2010 for failing to follow campaign disclosure policies during the last 2 weeks leading up to the election, which amounted to $37,000 in non-monetary contributions. They were fined $5,538.
So
that's like back in 2008.
Yeah, it was just, I'll tell you what, the internet, where information and knowledge and things.
The internet destroyed the church. It hasn't been the same since.
No.
Because now you're able to validate all of the things that, again, we've talked about this many times, but the things that are, told to us that are anti-Mormon become very Mormon.
When you see
when
it's
you
just
realize
the history.
that it's the history of the church, and it's in print, it's in journal of discourses, it's in print, it's in all of these,
Yeah.
text.
And your finger in your hand, carrying in your phone all the time. Like, you have answers there. So I'm curious, since COVID has hit and, church did get dropped down to 2 hours before that though. And so then, but now members have been cut off. Mm-hmm. When you think about Sunday, even if it is 2 hours, your Monday family home evening, your Tuesday mutual, maybe not scouts anymore, but you've got, all your life. And then all of a sudden kids aren't at school going to seminary. You're not going to church on Sunday. You're not going to visiting teaching. Shut down. And I wonder how many people are going, we have just got so much.
It's on Reddit.
Sundays.
Read Reddit.
Sundays used to be one of the most stressful days of the week.
But you read Reddit ex-Mormon, and I see continuous posts of people saying, got a call from the bishop asking for an interview, and we're like, no, we're good. And he's like, the secretary wrote, some guy posted this text thread. He's like, hey, Bishop so-and-so would like to meet with you for an interview. Are you available for a Zoom call at 7 p.m. on... I said call. Are you available for a Zoom call on Tuesday night or Thursday night? And the guy writes back, no, not interested. And the secretary writes back, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. And the guy says, I'm not interested in an interview with the bishop. One lady posted that the primary president called her and said, hey, we need to start planning on this meeting. And the lady wrote back and said, yeah, no, we've actually, since everything's gone down, we're not interested in coming back. We've really enjoyed the time.
I wonder if that's allowed that break for people.
We've really enjoyed the time with family. So this has caused this boom rift.
This is what I was going to say. Being such a stressful day, now Sundays for the last, how long has it been, 4 or 5 months?
Moms have got a break. Because if you have 9 a.m. sacrament and you have 6 kids...
Can you imagine getting our family ready for a 9 a.m. sacrament on Sunday morning? Nope. What is Sunday morning like for you?
She's not up yet.
Yeah, Beto's. Beto's.
What's Sunday morning? Stumble out of bed at 11 o'clock going, what's for breakfast? What are we having?
Who got Beto's?
Who's going to Beto's? What are we having? What are we doing?
Got football.
We got nothing to do but football to watch during the football season. And if it's not football season, it's just, golf. I'm going to go watch some Hallmark movies and chill out.
You're playing Fortnite.
It's that extra day off to just be with your family. And
I think families have gotten that. And knowing what we know about energy and feeling that pressure to be perfect, let's call it what it is. It's that need to keep up with the Joneses, and it's need to be perfect and earning all those things and doing those things, to kind of having that break. I'm sure at first it was like, whoa. But now it's been months, and they've got to go back, and to feel that again.
You've liked having those Sundays off, haven't you?
Yeah.
Haven't
you? So in the comments, what have you done with your family on Sundays since you've been?
Okay, so let's bring this back around to your story and wrap this up.
Yeah.
So you've gone through this spiritual awakening, which is the whole purpose of this show. So what does it mean for you today?
That's a good question.
I love where I'm at spiritually speaking today, because I know what I believe is what resonates true with me and just my own personal beliefs and how I feel about things. I mean, when you lose a religion, I can understand why people have the rebound religion. You know, like if you left, a lot of people will jump from, you know, that to maybe Catholicism or
well, it's kind of like
Christian
it's kind of a relationship. You get out of a long distance, a long relationship, and there's a part of you that's now missing, and you want to replace that thing.
It's
and
a structure. Going back to structure.
Yeah. So with religion, it
you
gives
feel
you structure
whole
spiritually
when you're part of something.
And now that's gone, so you want to replace it, and you grab whatever you think might be the thing that replaces it.
And a lot of times that ends up not being the thing. It's just that, like, it's that gateway to just fully commit to, you know, if you, but to each their own. If that means, like, you still want to have that relationship with God, however that is. I believe in God, but I don't call it God. I don't picture it like a man like I did growing up in the sky. I think of it as the universe, source energy, then we're all a part of that. And
so in a sense, you're basically a smaller portion of that energy.
Source energy, because it's energy. Energy is real. This is...
We've seen it.
Have you ever walked into, like, our kids will know if we've had a fight, they'll walk in and be like...
We don't fight.
Not anymore, because we know that's negative energy. No, I'm just kidding. We're normal. We fight. But after we fight, there's going to be that awkward, like...
That vibration. It's a lower vibration.
It stays in the energy. How do you explain that? So it's just more about love and acceptance. If we, like, recently we had the opportunity to take dinner to some friends. And we did it because we wanted to. There was no...
Somebody called and said,
motive.
"Hey, we're doing dinners for the Hales family. What night can we put you down for?"
No. You know what it was after that? I would hear that in church, people would do something, and I literally would hear comments, "That's another brick on my house in heaven." And it's just like, seriously? Like, that's why you did it? Is for your frickin' mansion in the celestial kingdom?
God.
No thanks. Like, that's why you did it? So it's just now, like, we live our life to love and accept and to be grateful and to focus on what we want, because when we do...
Because it's your choice.
And it's our choice, and when we do, it actually works, and we see it happening on a daily basis. And so, yeah, I'm so happy with where I'm at now, and
just how your progression or your, I guess, evolving has really allowed you to get to places where, and we talk about this a few times, but yeah, it's like you'd never consider something like this.
Not when we were active.
Because I know that this stuff that we talk about now would be like of the devil, of Satan, you know, like unexplained things, you know, just like it's in that realm, and it's a no-go.
So we've been wanting to have you on for a while because we've wanted the perspective from a female. We wanted somebody who had the perspective of not starting in the church.
Being born in the church.
So we've covered a lot of different areas and experiences that you had that none of us had.
Yeah,
and so I think that's what is going to make this a great episode, especially for maybe
our female viewers,
women, and
converts,
so
or
right. So this has been great. So
I've had a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Now you understand why we're down here for hours and hours and hours on Thursday nights?
Well, I'm sure it was
we're not just screwing around the entire time.
You can take over as the lighting and
we're looking for a sound person.
If you want to be a part of it.
We still need a sound person.
You can hang out here with us.
Look, who's my go-to person anytime technology doesn't work?
For real.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
You gotta...
All right.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah.
If something needs to be hooked up, I'm like, bang.
Yeah.
Will you hook this up?
For real.
This sucks.
Okay, so
She can do the sound.
she can do the sound.
I know. Rick wants to wrap it up. He's got to piss.
Well, nobody cares about this stuff.
Thanks
So
for
it's been
having
great.
me on. I appreciate it.
It's been awesome. So our next episode, which we'll hopefully be filming, what do we say, next week?
Who knows?
Or the week after? Johnson,
I
you know.
really
Well,
hope
Johnson
this
knows that
takes-
we're filming on September 10th.
So we don't
Our
have to
next
do this for a
episode
third
that
time.
we'll be filming for the Underground will be on our friend David Johnson, who served in Australia
Super
with us.
excited to have Dave out here.
But
Not out here
between
physically.
when this episode
on
is
Zoom.
released and when his episode is released, we'll have a couple, at least, episodes of Going Deep Underground, which we'll start doing live.
Whenever
Next
it
week.
decides to go live.
So if you
That's supposed to
guys
be next
have
week.
some ideas for that or have any questions, comment.
She's now our marketer
When
too.
did she,
Right.
when
We
did
just
she-
got a
when did she
marketer.
become?
We
Give
just
a
got a
thumbs up.
marketer. Lighting and sounding person.
Listen, this is just fun. We like doing this. We love hanging out together. We love talking. We love having...
And the fact that anybody enjoys watching it. is
Hey, we're
just
so grateful for those subscribers that follow us, the people that comment, that give us feedback. Look, it's through support of viewers that we're able to do this. And so
We're PBS.
we are going to have a telethon coming up here on Labor Day. And Sean's going to
We're
do
not
his...
having a
Sean's doing
we're
his
not.
tap dancing routine.
Anyway, we appreciate
tuned.
everybody
It's gonna be
watching.
fun.
I would love to see a video of Sean.
We do this
Tap
because it's fun
dancing.
for us.
They
but
call me
it's-
the Michael Flatley.
It's just icing on the cake that other people watch it and like it. So thanks for watching. And till the next Going Deep or the Underground.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Boom. 1, 2, 3. All of them are empty. We're really trying to work on that.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Cheers, everybody.
For more information or questions regarding the Underground or any of the topics we discuss, email us at wearetheunderground3@gmail.com, or you can message us on Facebook or YouTube by searching We Are the Underground 3.